Alright, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear us today? This is Wesley from the Central Ohio Game Dev Group. Ratings. Awesome. Cool. Yay! Man, I was gonna say that's what Caleb was saying. It's like we got a lot of presentations today, which is really cool. Um, so we got a couple of things kind of lined up. People are trickling in on a nice, fairly sunny Saturday afternoon. Yeah. Alright, let me go ahead, now that I got some voice going, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my face. Hey! Hey everybody, welcome to the Central Ohio Game Dev Group, our GameDev Meetup. My name is Wesley Adams, and I'm also obviously not the only person working on this. If you're here today, you're also part of the team. But we're a local game dev group that basically just kind of works around to kind of help other folks like you, whether you work on games, whether you're interested in what games are like, even if you're from the Central Ohio area or even externally. Like we've kind of been doing, oh man, a lot this year, which is really cool. Very excited today. We've got 4 presentations, so we're gonna have that lined up today. And the way that these usually go is we do a couple of COGG announcements for a little bit, just to kind of catch everybody up. That's really what these meetings are kind of turned into in some instance. Um, and they're a great way to kind of get people familiar with our group, get to kind of chat with each other. I'll be looking into the chat channel, so if you guys need anything, let me know. I've got some COG members, admin members like Tony and Caleb today, kind of helping out. But yeah, definitely let us know if you have any questions throughout the event. During the presentations, we'll try to take them as we go, but afterwards, if you have any questions, we'll try to collect those at that point just to make sure that all the answers are or questions are answered. Um, so yeah, my background is in animation. I work with a local studio called Multivarious Games, and I'm part of this year especially. I'm part of setting up the Game Expo GDEX, so I'll talk more about that later, and a lot of different things. And our team consists of like Caleb's technical lead, game designer, um, and has game development backgrounds. Tony's been helping out with our community, so say hi to him if you see him. Tony J. He's helping out with our online initiatives and some of our external opportunities. And then from time to time, you'll see Tom. He works with me at Multivarious Games, and he helps out with a lot of different opportunities just to kind of help me with some events, right? So game jams, especially, he's definitely been helping out with that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is kind of just switch over to some news. Let's do that. Everybody see that okay? All right. Again, we're COG, Central Ohio Game Dev Group, April 29th, 2023. Just kind of as a side note, we are online today, but that doesn't always mean we're going to be online. Today just kind of made sense because, oh wow, we had a lot of events this month. If you've been keeping track, we had probably about 5 events. This is our 5th one. We met up with CCAD on a Friday night. I think the first or second Friday night, and basically did our like a version of our prototype and play. So we met with students. Tony was there to help talk us through things. We had a lot of you there talking to students. We're trying to do more of those things, so definitely keep an eye out on our Meetup page. And we're always updating those as soon as possible, but sometimes they just kind of come in at the last minute. Then had our prototype and play event at Game Arena. So if you're not familiar with Game Arena, they're an esports division. They have a location in the gateway that we like to go to. There's like a little catwalk, and both locations we basically presented our games and talked about it, and then interacted with folks. So we had food and drinks and stuff. There's a bar there. There's games there. It's a really cool atmosphere. So we're going to try to do that every 3 months. So keep an eye on that because those are going to be a really great way to kind of like get to catch up with folks and talk with people. Um, so that's been really successful. And then Caleb did his talk on, if I think it was this month, right? It was on Mega Man Legends, one of the new Mega Man games on a live stream for his Let's Play series. So that was a lot of fun. Kind of went on there. He broke down some of the game mechanics. The Let's Play series are every 4th Sunday of the month, so they're a great way to kind of like break down some games. Mega Man Battle Network Legacy. Yes, thank you. And then we had, so that's 1, 2, 3. We had our, uh, oh, that's right. Ludum Dare started yesterday, so I'll talk about that. And then we have our Game Dev Meetup today. So yeah, 5 events. So let me go ahead and get started, and I'll kind of do a little bit of a backtrack deep dive on some of those things. All right. So again, Central How Game Dev Group, we're a collection of game developers who want to help each other make games. We collaborate with other groups like CCAD, Columbus State, OSU, other different organizations as well, other tech groups. We're a lot of different folks. We work to be open, we work to be family friendly. So like if you know anybody that's interested in any capacity, whether they have game experience or not, share a group with them. We're here to help. We're in uh, a a basically a primarily volunteer group, right? So we just do this because we think it's fun, it's great, it's great to help everybody. So we want to help you guys. So right now, our events are all kind of a mixture of online and in-person events. So last year, if you're with us, many of our events were like primarily at the Idea Foundry in person as we were kind of going back into in-person events. This year, we decided, as part of a couple things kind of changed, to do a mixture of both. So you might see some of our meetup pages say like online by default, but in person if we can't get a location. So this month was definitely more in-person events where we can. And so what we did is we always have something lined up for online, right? So, and that's to support both our online folks as well as our in-person folks. So, for example, I know some of you were looking forward to have a prototype and play online because you had something you wanted to showcase. So, it sounds like next month we're going to be online for prototype and play. Definitely keep that in mind. That's going to be July, or excuse me, May. May 2nd. So every second Friday of the month we have prototype and play. Sometimes that might move a week, but usually it's the second Friday, and that's from 6 to 9 p.m. That's going to be in our Discord channel. We have a couple channels lined up that are kind of temporary channels for people to present their games, and we kind of help curate people through different channels and different voice channels to get people familiar with what people are working on, right? Because that's really important. That's what prototype and play is for, is allowing you to have an audience to kind of give you feedback on the progress of your game, and just kind of give you some information and get to network with folks. Um, our Let's Play series, which I was talking about with Caleb. Caleb, presents that content. That's every third Sunday. Again, that can kind of shift sometimes depending on our schedule. So we have a lot of really good information there coming in. Usually, what happens is either he talks with the group, the COGG group in Discord and or in Facebook, and gets feedback on what people want to play, or he finds something that's interesting that kind of pop to the surface and plays that. And it's really a lot of it's like a game design breakdown, deep dive into like what works and what can be improved on a game and what's just kind of interesting about a game. We highly encourage anybody that wants to be a part of those discussions. Like if there's a game that you've been playing, like, I really like to talk more about this, let us know. Just message us in Discord. You can message us in the YouTube chat today. Leave a comment on this YouTube if you want to, and let us know. We try to check everywhere, and we'd love to have you on the stream. And then also, if you have a game that you want us to play with you or play for the COG audience, right, and kind of do a breakdown, we've done that in the past. We could have you on the stream, or if you want to kind of like be in the chat, right, talking to folks, you can do that. However you want to do it, let us know. We make the Let's Play series as a great way to kind of talk about game mechanics and kind of like, helping people understand and just kind of talk about like what works in a game, what's kind of interesting, and how things work in game development. Um, so that's May 21st on a Sunday this next month from 2 to 4 p.m. That'll be on a YouTube channel. So we're gonna make that channel very soon on our stream, on the COG YouTube streams. And then the Game Dev Meetup is still unknown. We don't know if that's going to be in person or if it's going to be online yet. But that usually is the fourth or last Saturday of the month, just depending on what kind of comes up first. So that's May 27th from 1 to 4 p.m. Something as a side note, and I don't even know if our COG admin team knows this yet, but I've kind of been kind of talking about it a little bit. But there's a potential that we have a location that we might start doing game dev meetups. So once I get more information about that, I'll talk about it. But we could have a site that we could be doing every month, which could be really cool, right? Because I know a lot of you really enjoyed those. We're trying our best to kind of like get more like an even mixture between online and in-person events. If you have any suggestions, if you have locations that you want us to try out, let us know. We're very open at this point. And really this is to kind of help benefit you guys, because like a lot of it has been like, if you're familiar with our group, a lot of what we've done in the past is a lot of uh, talks at the Idea Foundry, the co-working space, which we love, and we're gonna work to be doing more stuff there, like maybe classes or workshops or something with you guys. But I think that it's also important for us to outreach to other different communities around the Central Ohio area. So like your colleges, maybe it's a library, maybe it's a cafe, or like a bar arcade like level one. Like we love doing those things because it gets us connected with other people, right? We want to get you guys out there, as well as supporting our online folks as well. Like some people can't make it out, and they just want to see and catch up with us. Like we want to support everybody. So bear with us as we go through these transitional periods. And if you have suggestions, just let us know. We're here to help, and we want to cater this group to you guys, right? So just keep us posted. Down there at the bottom is our social media stuff. If you just go to thecog.com, you'll find all this stuff. I usually tell folks for the GameDev Meetup, or actually any meetups, excuse me, any events, go to the meetup.com/the-COGG, and you'll find all our events. We try to update them at the very end of the month. Currently, they're updated, although I just saw, and thanks to you, John, you mentioned that CORGS is May 13th. So I totally forgot about that. So definitely go to CORGS. It's a retro game convention. So I'll make a note on that. I'll try to post that up um, uh, today so that everybody gets aware of that. But yeah, definitely check us out. Check that out if you can. Um, and we should have a lot of fun. So let's see. Oh, and just as a note, like for conversations, if you ever want to talk to us live, really the best way nowadays is our Discord channel. So definitely check that out. If you go to thecog.com, I'll show you this here in a little bit. At the top right corner, there's a red button that says Discord, and it'll give you the general channel that you can go into once you read our README sections and kind of get onboarded. And you can talk to us live. You can talk to our group. I'm on there all the time, so if you have any questions, we have several different channels I'll kind of go over in a little bit. And then Facebook's a great way for like news things, so I try to post there. And I've also been trying to get better at posting on Twitter, so we're trying our best. There's a lot of different things to kind of post to. So we're about 2,000 members more on our Meetup page. We're actually growing quite a bit on Discord. We're getting to 600 mark, which is cool. So that continues to grow. We're networking with other groups, which I'll kind of showcase a little bit too. But yeah, there's a lot of information. I would say two new things, and I didn't post the other one, but I'll kind of show the website here in just a sec. But we have a COGG game section, so if you have something that you're working on or have worked on, I mean, I even tell folks like if you're around the Midwest area, like just let us know. It's fine. We've got a Google form that you can fill out. We'd love to put your game up there, and it's no strings attached. We just want it up there for people to see, and then when we go to expos like GDEX or Corgs or whatever, if we do go there, we want to showcase your games, right? We want to let people know where to find them. Um, so that's a great way to go there. We have a news section where if you have something like a podcast or a review, uh, it's the same thing. It's a Google form. Fill that out. I would request that you do fill that out because otherwise it will not go up on the news page. There's just a lot of things going on between Facebook and Discord that we can't keep track of all those things. And we don't even know if you want them live on our page. But if you do want them live on the page, just fill out that form. We haven't gotten very many replies yet, but we do definitely want to have like a blog and a space for you guys to see. As that web page becomes more apparent, we'll have more opportunities to see or to have a lot of exposure for a lot of that content. So let me kind of go over the web page just so you're aware about it. So if you go to thecogg.com, maybe. Oh, now it's like, there you go. You'll find this front page, which will have a lot of different information about who we are, how we work. If you want to be a volunteer, which actually I'm going to be reaching out to folks soon because we've got tons of stuff happening in June and even May. So if you're on that list, be expected to get an email soon. I'd like to get more volunteers in as well. There's a map page, so there's us, which I got to update that, but there's our code of conduct, which you can kind of read through some of this. So anything that you do for an event with us applies to our code of conduct. We actually do a lot of core values with the IGDA. It's a great group for game developers. Contacts is a great resource. It's got our contacts, but also a lot of other surrounding Ohio ones. So you can check that out. And then the event page just goes to our meetup page now. So definitely check this out because we try to update this every month. Like right now, like I said, yesterday Ludum Dare started. So that's a great game jam. We're not necessarily hosting it, but like we just wanted people to be aware about it. That happens, I think this year is twice a year. Usually it's about 3 times, but there's one in April and there's one coming up later in the year, I think 3 months later. Um, so we have uh, uh, our game dev meetup, we have a prototype and play, our let's play, and there's going to be another one. So yeah, definitely check this out. We try to update it every game dev meetup, so the end of the month, and that way you know what's coming up. And then we have our news page. So this is kind of what I was talking to you about. Our last thing was the Global Game Jam, but we're going to update a couple more things here soon. But it's real easy. If you want to be part of the news page, just go to select here. It'll bring up a Google News, and you basically fill out this information. Gives us like a good idea of like what you want to present. And what we do is we make a card for you, just like this, right? So it'll ask you for an image, some details, and there's sections in here when you click on those news posts or whatnot. So it's a great way to kind of see how things work. Um, and then the other one I was talking about is the COGG games. It's the same thing, except it's just like cards like in this stack, right? So if you click here, same thing, more information about how to fill out, and it gives us enough information to create like an image for you, kind of a title, description, and something for us to go to, right? So we're always looking at these weekly. So if you have anything you want to showcase, please, please, please help us out. We want to help you out, and it's a great way to kind of get your game up there. I know there's tons of COD games, and I don't see nearly enough. So if you do have something you want to showcase and free advertisement, let us know. We'd love to put this up there. Resources is a great way to learn more about our social media. So, I mean, this is kind of reciprocal to what I was talking about, but also the media up here. And then helpful links, which we got to add more to as well. And then we just have a photos page. So, anyways, I digress. That's our website. A couple things coming up is let me just see. So that's that. I just want to let people be aware we're reaching out to a couple external groups, like in Pennsylvania. Tony's going to be a great person to talk to about this because he's going to be doing a talk later today about his experience reaching out to external folks. And our goal is to really just see what other groups are doing, right? Maybe there's something that we can do with ours. Maybe there's people that we can get connected with. Definitely every time we talk to folks, they've been very interested in interacting with our groups. So you might see some people coming in from time to time just to say hello. Please welcome them in Discord, right? Let them know that, hey, we'd love to talk more and see what you're doing. So BitBridge is a group in Pittsburgh. So they're a group that I just found. Philly Game Mechanics is another one in Philadelphia. So they're another great group. Definitely check them out. They're a really cool group. Sometimes they have online events, but a lot of them are also in person. So definitely check out and see if any of them apply to you. And I'll live, maybe we can talk more. If you have a group you want us to, let the group know about, we'd love to share. So, Ludum Dare again is happening now. This is through Monday at 9 p.m. And the theme this year is delivery. So if you want more information, I'm just going to go ahead and put this in the chat channel. Just go ahead and check that link out and sign up. You'll have to create an account. And basically, if you've never done a game jam, it's you basically go in. You can do it alone or with a team. You kind of read through these rules. They are a little bit different than Global Game Jam. If you're familiar with that, we did that earlier this year in February. So definitely check this out. They really kind of want you to start from scratch, is to my understanding. but they could be a mixture. If you guys have more information about that, I know a couple of you COG folks have done Ludum Dare. If you want to talk about your experience, let us know in the chat and in the Discord. And if you know any other game jams, let us know. I will tell you there is one other game jam coming up, and that is, if you're not familiar with GDEX, it's a Midwest Game Developer Expo happening June 22nd through the 25th. And I think I posted this last time. We're going to do an announcement early next month, but we have our GDEX Game Jam. So this is a 9-day Game Jam event. I'm actually hosting this with Tom, and we'll send a message out through COG and everywhere else. Basically, we work 9 days, and it's casual 9 days. You don't have to work the entire day. It can be solo, it can be with a team. We will have a theme yet to be determined, and that's going to be from June 2nd through the 11th. So we'll have everything's going to be online, so we'll have a YouTube kickoff event, and then on the 11th we'll have a closing event, and then whatever people post up on our itch.io page, which is almost released, it's getting there, um, we will play those games and then we'll review them live. Well, throughout the event, we'll use Discord as our communication tool, which will be great because we're going to be inviting game development professionals as a peer review to kind of check on your guys' progress, as well as judging the games along with jammers right after the 11th. So it's going to be the 12th through the 15th is when we're going to have our judging period. And that's going to be a great way to kind of nominate the best in show. And what we do is we take that best in show and we showcase it at GDEX. So this is a great way to get publication. There are no like prizes or anything. This is just to kind of get people out there and kind of do a little bit of a fun like publication thing. But at the end of the day, no matter what, if you're into games, if you want to make games, this is one of the best ways to do it. Not just this game jam in general, but just game jams, or this GDEX game jam. But game jams in general are a great way to learn about the game development process. And you don't need game development experience. We can kind of help you along the way. So please do consider this. It should be a lot of fun. We have fun every year. We get international folks, so we get folks from like Netherlands and Germany and California. So we get all kinds of amazing people. So we'll keep you posted on that. And then alongside that, our goal is to bring back Jamio. So if you guys were familiar back in 2020, GDEX had their online event. It was the first of the GDEX Game Jam. We had our Jamio bot that was very, very brand new, very chunky. We're now doing beta testing, so if you're interested in testing Jamio, I know a couple of you guys are helping us out currently. Our goal is to have Jamio at GDEX Game Jam. So we're still working on fixing up some of the bugs, but our goal is to bring it back. Jamio is now not just exclusive to the GDEX server. Our goal is to make it universal. And what it does is it helps to build teams. It helps organizers like myself and other game jam organizers to help set up teams. And if people have questions about like looking for resources or getting assigned to a team, or if they want to color their team's channel or give an icon, like all that good stuff we had before, Jamio will do that for you. You basically talk to Jamio in Discord and it'll set up all your teams automatically and kind of help you throughout the way. So it's very exciting. I'm starting to do some testing now and there's some really cool things there. So if you want to be a beta tester, let me know. We're doing it for obviously the next couple of weeks, and any support would be greatly appreciated. So let us know. And then one last thing I wanted to note before we get into our presentations is I went to the Idea Foundry. So I mentioned this before. What was it, Thursday? They had their town hall meeting. So just kind of wanted to get some updates on that. Basically, they're working on a couple new events. They have, and if you're interested in events, you can always check out their events page. If you go to ideafoundry.com, the events link here, they have a whole calendar of information that you can go to, and there's classes and tours you can explore. Obviously, there's memberships if you want to woodwork membership or co-working membership. Excuse me. And then if you just want to see. Let me see. I think they. I was trying to see if they had events page, but I know there is a calendar somewhere. Yeah, here we go. So they have a calendar page of all their events. The big one coming up is their Mother's Day's event, um, which should be in May. Yeah, they have a lot on here, so I might be just getting. Yeah, there's a date night. So definitely check it out. There's always something cool happening. They're bringing back stained glassing, and there's the Mother's Day event. So if you're interested in those things, definitely check them out. There's all kinds of classes and events happening. Um, but yeah, there's that, and then also a couple changes. They got some new admin there. They have Jeff, who's working on fixing and maintaining the workshop. We got John, who's helping Alex. If you know him, he's the coordinator at the Idea Foundry with some events and just some administration stuff. And just as a note, there are some changes happening. They are renovating the parking space. So I just wanted to kind of be open about that. It's going to be they have a tenant with the Gravity buildings around there. So Gravity is like some of the apartment complexes. Um, so there are changes for sure, but there's also some benefits. One of the nice things is because during COVID, right, like everybody kind of got hit. The Idea Foundry also got hit a little bit. So in that instance, Gravity was able to kind of help them out with the tenant space in exchange for being able to use the Idea Foundry for a couple things, right? I think I mentioned this before when we were kind of converting over. Um, they have opportunities to keep their tenant instead of just 1 year up to 5 years, which is great, right? Because I think a lot of times what happens with co-working spaces is they don't really know all the time if they're going to be there for a year or 2 years. So now they have it written out that they'll be there for 5 years at least. And in exchange, what they're going to do for some of the tenants is they're going to take the parking lot and make it into kind of like a beer garden. They're going to have a front stage. So there's going to have some sculptures and some great decorations there. So this will not be accessible for parking, as it will be, like I said, kind of more like a beer garden. So there'll be a lot of exciting new opportunities there to kind of hang out, kind of like what they had at the land grant right out front. So that's some cool stuff coming up. And so what they're going to do is they're going to have parking instead of here. It's going to be gravity parking here. So there'll be a gate. So this will be, I guess there's no way around it, but this will be paid parking. But the good news is if you're familiar with parking at Sorry, my mic turned off for some reason. All right. So if you are familiar with parking at Game Arena, they will have $5 parking there for anybody that is scheduled to have a meeting. So we're going to have to figure that out if we do meetings there, is making sure we have parking passes for everybody. So it'll basically be a day pass for $5. And then they'll be able to park in the Gravity parking garage. So I think there's some parking over here too, but it's obviously a little bit further away. And then it is stated here there's free parking, but honestly they were saying like don't even worry about that parking because it's a lot for admin, and they're not even guaranteed that parking, um, after a while. So what we'll do is if you're going to the Idea Foundry, I think this is going to start as soon as next month is they're going to go in and start requiring people to park in the Gravity parking garage. And it's going to be over here on the left side in the intersection of West State Street and McDowell Street. This is the entranceway here on the left side. So we'll navigate that when we can. We're still working it out. The biggest thing is they were kind of communicating to us is like we're learning along with you guys on this new process. They know that it's not as ideal as they would like it to be, but it also provides, again, a solitary support in terms of like being able to have the Idea Foundry there, longer, and have the ability to kind of like do a lot of what they do already and not have to worry about like too much interference. So we'll talk about that as we need to, but like I said, we're still also working to have different events, other different locations. So inside of like the Idea Foundry, like we'll still be working to do events there, but we're still going to try to do our game arena events. We're still going to try to work with CCAD or say like Columbus State or OSU, or maybe a level one. So we're still going to have a lot of things to do. So we'll be very communicated once we get those things figured out. Cool. Anybody have questions? I'm going to move back to the slideshow. All right. Yep. And as I mentioned before, like I think you guys are maybe familiar with this since as of last year. If we do have in-person events, there's no masks or vaccinations required. I mean, at this point, we're knock on wood, everything's starting to get back to where they used to be. Um, but we always encourage it, right? It's a big group, so we just keep people informed. But if you come in and you don't want to, that's okay. But you might see some of us do it, and if you want to, you're welcome to, right? So we just want to make sure that it's a comfortable event for everybody. Um, and then yeah, we'll get to today's meetings. So today we had our announcements. We're gonna have Tony talking about his experience at East Coast Game Conference. Caleb talking about he's got a technical talk that he's going to review, which will be kind of neat. And then we have Mayo, who's been working on a game called Insect Adventure. He's got a 1.5 update release we'll be talking about. And then Brian's going to go over a little bit of Godot, right? Like kind of a little bit of a 101. I know a couple of you have been asking about that, so definitely check that out. Should be a lot of fun. And then what we'll do is once we're done with the networking, or excuse me, presentations today, we'll get into networking. So definitely check that Discord link out. It's a great way to kind of get to know us. And what I'll do is quickly get you the link. That way you have it. Oh, it's a little bit tricky. There we go. All right. And then after the presentations, we'll just get to talk to each other. Maybe we'll do a game if you guys want to. And I usually do a question of the month is when and how do you plan UI on your video games? It's supposed to be on your video games. And if you don't plan that, like or haven't done that, what is your favorite UI in video games? So for example, like maybe you love the UI in uh, 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 Persona, right? That has some really cool UI. So yeah, I just figured just something to discuss, but you guys can talk about whatever. But yeah, that's kind of enough with the announcements. I kind of rambled on for too long. So what I'll do, and now is kind of move over to our presentations, and I'll go ahead and switch over to our first presentation with. There we go. You guys hear me still? Yeah. Okay. So Caleb, if you're ready, I'll have you switch over if you want to jump into the live chat channel, and we'll kind of go from there. Just do this. There we go.
Hello.
Hello. You probably know this guy.
Probably too familiar with my face.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know Caleb, he is a very amazing uh, person in general. Obviously, he's a very
Oh.
a big part of what we do at COGG. Like I said, he helps out with the Let's Play series. An amazing designer, programmer, and overall good person. So, but yeah, I won't go on too much. You can introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you're doing today.
Thank you, Wes. Yeah, so this is really fun. So I've been a part of COG for a while. I've been on the admin team since I don't know, what has it been? I feel like it was like 2019, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I don't even look at times anymore. It just goes by too fast.
2019 does feel remarkably like long ago,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Um, and it just keeps getting farther away. But before that, I was part of COG, just kind of attending on and off since approximately 2015 or so. I remember um, this probably would have been 2016, 2017. I was having a conversation with Scott Baker,
Yes.
and there was a game I was working on called S4. And that game had a back end, and I was struggling with authentication, like really, really struggling. And at that point, I had been in web development professionally for a couple of years, but that authentication was never something that I was doing in my professional work. It was mostly front end JavaScript, that sort of thing. And man, I was just really struggling. And at one point, I was using a backend as a service called GameSparks, which basically doesn't exist anymore. And they were kind of handling my authentication for me. And then it just continued to be insufficient, and I was trying to find something else. And I tried rolling a number of things, and it was just painful, really, really painful. At one point, I did manage to get an Azure thing going that was at
Oh.
least like letting me do the turns and stuff in the game, because it was all like a turn-based strategy game. And but just getting to the point of having a strong, consistent authentication system, I struggled. I really, really struggled, and that that was a theme that kept coming back, because I kept running into situations where I needed to handle authentication of users, and it was just hard. I just couldn't overcome that barrier. And to this day, to today, I'm still struggling with some of the concepts and just like getting my head around all of the things that need to happen, especially if you're using OAuth and things. I just have some conceptual things I'm still trying to work out.
Well,
However, what?
I was gonna
Yes,
say
Wes.
it's that and authentication has changed so much over the years, right?
Oh,
There's
sure,
so
for
many
sure,
options.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And there keep being new things that are like, oh, this is actually now very insecure. We need to do it a different way.
Right.
Like that stuff comes up just all the time.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to present today, and this is a shout out to Scott Baker, who many of you know. Scott told me during that conversation many years ago. He said, "Well, hey, you figure it out, and then you come back to COG and give us a presentation." Well, like
There you go.
was this is like 6-7 years later.
That's
I'm
great.
back, Scott. I'm gonna make a presentation on authentication.
Yeah.
Yes. So professionally right now, I have the opportunity of working as the tech lead for a educational game called Ogstar Reading. And so one of the things I'm doing right now is I'm working on a building a backend server that is developed using .NET 7. So this is Microsoft's .NET ASP. Their controller background, where you can create API endpoint routes. You can do like page rendering, server side rendering. You can do all kinds of stuff. It's a whole fully featured development pipeline. For server architecture. And of course, they have tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff going on there. I have really fallen in love with it in a lot of ways. Now, part of the reason is that I've been using Unity for years. I'm very familiar with C Sharp, and it's all in C Sharp, of course, because .NET. And so I'm just very familiar, one. And the game is developed in Unity, and so there's a lot of similarity for how you can do things. I There's even a thing, and I don't have it set up for this project yet, but you could even create basically classes that represent your response and request objects. And so you can use the same response and request objects in both worlds. And so if you modify it in one place, then it gets the modification in both places. And that can be very powerful. So you can share it without having to recreate your class definitions for this or that or the other thing. So there's just a lot of interesting things I like a lot about C Sharp syntactically. I think is very clean. They've done a lot of work over the last couple of years to clean up, like create a lot of sugar syntax so that things are very, very clean looking, very simple. Their getters and setters can do a lot of very clean looking things like lambda operations, etc. This is This is a very technical talk, by the way. So if you're not a programmer, I apologize. I will not caveat every single thing like a Lambda function. But there's just, suffice to say, there's a lot of really cool things going on.
Yep.
Um,
Well, and one of the things I'm curious about is you talking about like creating a simplistic, very clean process and thinking about like what uh, making the process to create this feature without uh, uh, issues of security risks, right? Because that could be a
right,
concern,
right,
right?
absolutely, 100%. So, well, that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about. Um, and I also want to give a caveat on that. So I am not a security expert. There are people who are massively more knowledgeable in that. In fact, there are potentially people watching this right now who are far more knowledgeable about this than I am. So it's not, it is entirely possible that I have done something or configured something that maybe is not the most ideal way possible. I'm not going to get into the guts of the specific configuration settings and what they're doing. I've actually intentionally collapsed a lot of that code just for cleanliness, because what I'm trying to do here is like we're going to talk through code, but I also have a lovely graph that I put together this morning, because what I want to do is I want to walk you through conceptually what I'm doing. So hopefully, even if you're not like straight up a programmer, this can still be a benefit for you, because it hopefully will help you build a mental model for why authentication is working the way it is and how it works in the background and how all of that kind of pieces together. So hopefully this will be beneficial for you if you're not super technical, but it will be a bit technical. I'll just forewarn you. And also, I might not have it 100% right. I'm doing the best I can, and I'm learning, and we're learning together. So if you see anything and you're like, hey, what about this? I'd love to hear from you and love to hear some feedback and love to dialogue about it, because this stuff is complicated. It's cool, but it is complicated. So with all that, let's go ahead. I've got charts. La 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 la. Let's see.
Cool.
My Discord window disappeared down. There it is. Nope, no, it's gone. Oh, there it is. All right. Okay, so chart visible. It looks like it's visible on YouTube. Great. So I'm all about those charts. This is just a side plug. This is a application formerly known as draw.io. It is now app.diagrams.net.
Oh,
You
really? I
Yeah,
I didn't
this is
know that because I use that. Cool.
yeah, this is super fantastic. It's been around for a long time. You can save your files directly into Google. Google
Yep.
Drive has OAuth authentication into Google Drive, so you can save your files there. So it's basically just an interface for rendering and building out these charts. And so I think it's super valuable. I am going to tell you, this is not like perfect UML or anything. This is just the format that made sense to me while I was putting it together. I should have created a very small brief overview before getting into the weeds here. So maybe we can actually do this on the fly. So really, really quickly, here's what we're going to do. So what we have is we have a user. A user is going to access our site. So here's a user. A user is going to access our site. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that this user is who they say they are, right? So what we're going to do is the user's going to give us a username and a password. And then we are going to give the user back something, which is a token. So let's call this our server. And so user is going to give our username password to the server. And the server is going to make sure that this is actually the correct username and correct password. Great, those things are valid. But now, for every subsequent request, if they're trying to access some kind of route or data or information that requires them to be authenticated, we are just going to go ahead and give them back something called a token. And so what the point of this token is it's basically it's like the key card for your hotel room. So you've given the person your information at the desk. They've verified that you are who you are. Now they've given you a key card that we're going to call the token, and they've given that to you. And now every time you want to walk through a door, you just token and then done. You don't have to go. You don't have to. This is my name. Here's my ID, and here's my birthday and my social security number. Every time you go through a door at the hotel, like no, you just boop. There we go. Done. Here's your token. And so what we're going to do is okay, there it is. So what we're going to do is the server's going to give you back a token, and then every time the user wants to access the server, we're going to give them back the token, and then we'll be able to go off and do whatever. So that's the basic idea of what's going on here. Now, there's a little bit of an extra complication in that we're going to have 2 tokens, and I'll explain why. But to do that, what we're going to do is, how do we get to the point of having a user authenticated? All right, so what we're going to do first is user needs to pass credentials into our application. And this is typically, /login or whatever it might be. This is the application's login page form. Now, in order to, we're actually going to go and look at some code. So this is it. This is our authentication controller. So a couple of things for how .NET defines this. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. That's probably a bit better. All right. Let me know on the chat if that is readable for y'all. Hopefully it is. But I have the chat open, so let me know, and I'll make it bigger if we need. So this is a route defined inside of .NET. It's a really nice little moniker. Basically, this is a route defined as a HTTP post route. Obviously, you can imagine that there might be other ones like HTTP GET or delete, or put. There we go. There's more, but you get the idea. And then you define a route. Well, let's take a quick look and see how the controller definition is. So in the world, you have a controller, and then you can define your controller route. And so in this case, you can see we're calling it a controller, and we're calling it a route. And the particular route here is going to be API v1. And then this is a cool little moniker where basically the controller name inside of the class name, it identifies automatically that it is in fact a controller. And so when you do this little moniker in the route, it will automatically replace that with the name of the controller without the word controller, which makes your route basically, in this case, API/v1/authentication. And then, of course, these ones are defining further parts of the route. So this would be authentication/teacher login. For our purposes, like the educational app I'm working on, it has teachers and students. Don't worry about that. We're just going to look at teachers right now. And when you see the teacher in the code, just think user. This is just your user login and authentication. So we got this cool from body. This allows us to unpack the post body JSON object into this user's credentials. And that just contains a username and password. So, okay, let's go back to our chart. Okay, so the user has passed in credentials to our login route. We have seen that. Now, just for understanding what the flowchart looks like, the purplish stuff, that's like a flow diagram. This is like the order of operations that things are going in. I've got these decision points. Decision points can go into a red flow, which is a no option, or a green flow, which is a yes option. And then, yeah, the purple is just kind of the main flow through everything. Okay, so we've come into our auth controller. Now, what's important about our auth controller, it does not require you to be authenticated because anybody should be able to access it. So we go ahead, we go into our authentication controller. Now, first thing we need to do is we've been given a username, we've been given a password. So we need to get that user. I will say we have skipped the whole creating a user. That is a whole thing unto itself. But hopefully you can infer how some of that happens just based on how we retrieve the user. So we'll switch back to our code. All right, here it is. So we got a couple of try blocks. These are important because you want to be able to handle your exceptions correctly. You don't want to crash your server if somebody fails authentication. That's pretty important. So you want to handle those gracefully and try catch blocks. So here's our first big chunk here. We're going to go and get our teacher. So if you are familiar with .NET, you're probably familiar with a library called the Entity Framework. If you are unfamiliar, I'm going to tell you what it is. So Entity Framework is a super cool wrapper. I think it's been a while. I think the term is an ORM, maybe, or maybe an OMR. But basically, when you were dealing with a relational database, so that's a database that has tables and values and usually uses SQL, then one of the most common vulnerabilities is in a website is when you are given, even to this day, by the way, is when you are given a form field that will receive input from that field that then gets transferred into an SQL query into your database. That is still super common and is called an injection attack and allows people to inject SQL straight into your database and download the whole database or delete the whole database. It's kind of terrifying. So the idea behind things like Entity Framework is it prevents you ever having to write SQL. And so it already knows how to properly escape strings so that SQL isn't ever injected. It does a whole bunch of other management stuff. It also creates really cool, like we're in object-oriented land, right, with C#. So it creates a whole bunch of objects that will model what's in your database. And so you can create migrations and you can do all kind of fun stuff with it. Entity Framework is the one, really, if you're in .NET world. Every other server architecture programming language has their own version of this. You can pretty much always find one no matter what world you're working in. But in .NET Entity Framework, that's the one we use. And then in this whole world, we're using this thing like a teacher, this is called a teacher repository. So the repository is basically it's kind of a fancy word for a service whose job it is to hold the code for accessing the database. We can actually take a look at this one real quick. Okay, look at our implementation here. It's very, very simple. So all you do is I have a context object. That is the object that defines all of the tables and all of the models and everything. So I'm going to access the teacher's model, and then you give it this where I've given it a username. So I'm going to give you back the teacher user that matches that username, and I'm going to give you the first one that comes back. And what's super cool about this is this whole line right here, because of the way Entity Framework Core works, this is code. I mean, this is just like normal C# kind of, functional programming style, searching code, like going through a list and returning results. And they have this whole system on the back end that will take that value, convert it into properly formatted SQL, go to the database, get your stuff, and send it back to you. And I never have to think about SQL or touch it, which I've done lots of work with SQL in the past. And so this was just really nice. Really, really nice. Don't have to worry about it at all. Just completely wraps up the SQL for you.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So at this point, we are wanting to get our user back. And we have a couple of possibilities. So we want to get our user. And basically, if the user comes back as we have it, great, we move on. If it fails, then of course we want our authentication to fail. So that's where you will see this first exception. So the way that the repository is set up this is just kind of a fun little implementation detail, is I'm using this first async value. And what that will actually do is if it doesn't find a value, it will throw an error if it doesn't find anything that matches. There's another one that's first or default async. And if it's what that one will do is if it doesn't find anything, it will return kind of like a default empty object. And then it will move on. But in this case, I actually want it to fail, give me an actual error if something goes wrong and it can't find a user. And so the result of that is, let's go back here. So the result of this is it's in a try catch block. So if anything goes wrong, then I've got an authentication exception, which I'll throw it up to the next try catch block. But basically, no user found, it's going to blow up. Sidebar on that, I'm never going to return to the user that the username was not found, because you don't want to tell them that the username wasn't found or that the password was wrong specifically. You just want them to know generically that authentication failed, because until you tell them that the username was correct but the password was wrong, they don't know the username was correct.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a layer of like keeping your information from an unauthenticated user.
I hate that when websites say, hey, we couldn't find your email. I'm like, don't tell me that. Like, I want to know that someone trying to hack it doesn't know which email or whatever is like incorrect.
Right.
Just tell them,
right.
Tell me you sent it to the email if it exists.
Yes, absolutely.
Be broad.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so at this point we have our user. Great. And now we're going to go to the next step. So let's look at our graph. User exists. Great. And the user table contains a lot more information than this. I've just noted the things that are important for our authentication process. So we've got a username, and we're going to have a password digest. Another way to say this is it's a password hash. We're going to talk about what that is and why that's important. So our next step is we need to validate the user credentials. So the user has passed you a username and a password. And what we're going to do is this is our block. And this is our super important thing right here. So when a user gives you a password, it is really, 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 really important that the only person in the whole of existence that ever knows what the password was is the person who sent it. So you should never log the password. And when you store the password in the database, it needs to be stored in what's called a hash. Some of you will know what this is. I'm explaining it for those who don't. What a hash is basically a one-way transformation of a piece of text. So a hash, there's people who are very, very, very intelligent and know way more about all of the incredible math that goes into hashing and cryptography. But basically what you do is you take your password string and it converts it into another string that cannot be reverse engineered. It is always going to be in this format, and you're never going to be able to figure out what the original password was because of it. But because math, you can take the original password and convert it into that piece of information. And it has to do with something called assaults and some other things. Again, there's resources that you could look into to figure out exactly like some more about the math going in. It's fascinating stuff, and I definitely don't understand it all. But basically, it converts it from the password into the hash. And the hash is what you save in the database. And bcrypt is kind of the industry standard. Like, it's the one I see pretty much everybody using. And bcrypt is a phenomenal tool that will just do that conversion for you. It'll take the password and turn it into a hash. Now, what's also really cool is that because of how the hash is built, you can take the same exact password, hash it 10 times, and you will get 10 different hashes. And so someone cannot look at your database then and see, oh, here's this hash. Oh, this hash is used 10 other times. These are all the same password. I could just jump and use this password on all of those accounts. Doesn't work like that. Every hash is unique, even if the password is the same. And I think that's really cool. So what you do is you store the hash in the database, and the hash is useless. It's completely useless because you tried to pass the hash as the password, doesn't work. So what we're going to do here then is we take the password the user provided, we take the hash password, and we pass it into the hash basalt. Thank you. You pass in the both of them into the verify function for bcrypt. And so what basically bcrypt will do is it will take the hash, which will contain the salt information, and it will convert the password based on the same parameters as what was created for the hash, and boom, there you go. Do they match? Done. And then the password at this point becomes unused. We don't do anything else with the password. But if those two match, then huzzah, we have authenticated. The user at least knew who the username was and the password was. That's what multi-factor authentication is, and that is not what we're talking about here. So great. So here's back to our graph. Was it a valid password? No. We'll kick them back to the login page saying, nope. If it is a valid password, we're going to move on to the next two phases. So the next two phases are we're going to give them their token. So going back to our initial analogy, it is the key card from the front desk. So they're going to give you this refresh token, and we're also going to give you an authentication token. And these are two different things, but they're going to be handled in a similar kind of way. And this is where I have some weirdness about, is this really are they really supposed to be handled the same way? But I guess they are. And we can have a conversation about that if you want. But basically we're going to create these two things, refresh token and an auth token. Now a refresh token is entirely a homegrown thing. It doesn't exist as another kind of thing. It's literally just a string. So I have a random string generator, generates a random string. I'm not going to go in and show you how this token utility works at this time. That's where a lot of the specific configuration and stuff is. And hey, this is being recorded, so I'm just not going to show you that part right now. But I'll tell you what it does. So first we got this generate a token, and the token is actually going to get saved in the database. The refresh token is. So we're going to create a refresh token that gives us I have this idea of a proto and a model. So the model is the thing that actually gets stored in the database, and the proto is just sort of like the partial pieces as it gets generated. So I have this convert refresh token proto to token model. There are reasons for that, but it goes ahead, I pass some information to it, and then it goes ahead and generates the model. And then the add refresh token is where it actually goes out to the database. So you'll see this is the refresh token repository, and it adds it to the database using the entity framework core, just like with the teacher that we saw previously. So we go ahead, we build that, and then we send it on. Now, here's an important note. One of the things that's happening in the background is the refresh token, which again, random string of characters, that gets hashed with bcrypt and puts in the database because the refresh token itself is like a password. And so it gets treated like a password, it gets hashed, it gets put in the database. And then later we're going to do some validation against it using the same bcrypt verify process, right? How am I doing on time? I feel like I'm taking a really long time.
Oh, you're good. You're about 25 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I've been talking for 25 minutes?
I think so. I think 240? So maybe 30.
Oh, jeez.
Maybe 245. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to try to move faster. There's tons. Okay, so the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to generate what's called a JSON web token. This is actually a formal format of something. Well, let's do a quick example. If I look up JSON JWT validator. Here we go. This will give us a demo. So a JSON web token looks like this, and basically what it has is it has three chunks to it. So it has the header, it has a payload, and then it has a hash verification. So it has its own verification thing, and it's based off of a secret that does its own stuff. So this is how you can verify the what am I talking about? This is how you can verify it. So because the JSON web token is actually it is not hashed. It's actually really easy to take a JSON Web Token, plug it into one of these, and decode it into actual JSON. I mean, literally, it took the string and it gets all of this information. So JSON Web Tokens are the data that they contain is not secure. So you should never put information, like critical information, in a JSON Web Token, like passwords, for instance, should never be in a JSON Web Token. Not that you would ever need to, because that's kind of what the token is for anyway. But so it's got some information in it, and then it has a process by which the server which generated the token is also able to verify that the token is one that it created authentically. That's what the last blue chunk is for. In my case, I'm putting the username into the JSON Web Token, and that will be reused in just a little bit. Okay. So we've created a refresh token. We've created a JSON Web Token. And then both of those are going to get put into what's called an HTTP only cookie. And so you know what cookies are. You see those pop-ups all the time, right? We're using cookies on our website. Anyway, so they're everywhere. And cookies, HTTP only cookies, are a specific kind of cookie. For you, the end user, if you open up your browser, you go to like the cookie management, you can see them and you can see the values that are in them. There's nothing that prevents you, the user, from being able to see what the cookies are stored on your computer. The big catch is these cookies cannot be accessed by JavaScript on the browser. So if I go into the browser tools and I type "get this cookie for me," it will say, "What cookie? I'm sorry, we can't find that cookie for you," because it's a security feature built into the browser. It does not have access to the cookie or its value. And this is really, really, really critical. So if you were on, let's say I'm building a website and I am using third-party libraries, because I am all the time, everybody does, and a third-party library gets compromised and somebody puts some code into it that goes cookie sniffing. So it's like you load up the website and this malicious code is now part of your website and runs, and it just grabs all of your cookies and throws them out to somebody. If that could access this cookie, then it would now have the keys to the kingdom for your account, and boom, they can now get access to it. But we don't need the front end to ever access these cookies, because with this kind of a cookie, and I think most cookies in general, basically what happens is they get attached to the request from the browser to the server every single time. And so it makes a request, the cookie gets attached, there it goes, which is awesome. So these cookies are not accessible to the JavaScript, but they will be accessible on every single request from the client to the server, which is exactly what we want. The other thing there are some additional security features on these cookies. So for instance, the cookie is only valid within the context of a given domain. And so the cookie will not be visible or anywhere valid except when communicating with this specific server, which is also really important. Those are some good security features out there. So once the authentication process is complete, we've validated the user's username and password, we've gotten their cookies generated, and then we go ahead and give them their stuff back, and then boom, they're into our app. Okay, great. Awesome. We're at this point. So this was that chunk. What we have left is this chunk. And this is why I'm like, oh boy, time is oh boy, I gotta move quickly. Okay, so what has to happen is that every single time our user makes a request into the system, we now have to use the tokens that we gave them to verify that they are still authenticated. So one of the important things we attach to a token is an expiration. So let's say user is now trying to access a specific route where they are going to get data that requires you to be authenticated. And then what I have set up is a two-step authentication system. And we can see that here in my program. I have what's called a JWT bearer. So this is a sort of built-in authenticator with a bunch of configuration options. And then I have my own authentication scheme that handles the refresh token pipeline, because again, the refresh token is entirely custom. And then I have kind of a higher level scheme that is going to verify those two in order, because that's important. So this is what it's going to look like in order. So every single time that our user makes a request to the website and what they want to get is data that requires authentication, the first thing we're going to do is verify that their JSON web token, which is in the cookie, is valid. And this is handled almost entirely under the hood by the JSON web token service. So it's something provided by Microsoft. It's a utility. It's already available to them. And all they have to do is just say, hey, make sure that the cookie is, make sure that the JSON web token is valid. So it has a whole list of validation checks it runs against it and make sure that it is valid, and make sure that it is not expired. That's also important. So it verifies all of this stuff. And back to our chart, that's this first part. Is it valid? If it is, great, give them the data. If it's not, we're going to move on. That's where we get into our custom service. So what our custom service is going to do, and I am going to try to move through this quickly, but this is kind of the complicated part of it. So what we want to do, this chunk first, is we want to verify again that the JSON web token is invalid, but only in one specific way. So what we want to do is the only way that we want our user who has a JSON web token to be valid is if they have a valid JSON web token that is expired. I'll say that again. When we have a user accessing the system who has a JSON web token and our auth token, the JSON web token, and a refresh token, the only way, if for some reason the JSON web token is invalid, the only acceptable state for invalidity of the JSON web token is expiration. So if the JSON web token has expired, then we can go ahead and use the refresh token. If any other state happens, for any other reason the JSON web token is not working, then we just kick the user out and say, you are no longer authenticated, you're going to have to authenticate. Which means that any user who accesses the system has to have the JSON web token, like expired or unexpired, and the refresh token. Sidebar, one of the things that's happening here is that the JSON web token and the refresh token have expiration dates, and then the cookies they're stored in also have expiration dates. When a cookie is expired, the browser immediately deletes the cookie. So it goes away forever, like it's just gone. It clears it.
Is that
go
why
ahead.
sometimes you are working away and then you have like your authenticator app and you're trying to get in, it expires, and then like maybe you weren't paying attention and you were gone for too long and it says, hey, you waited too long, you're gonna have to do it again.
Possibly. So certain websites are going to be like monitoring your activity, and if you're inactive for long enough, then they'll log you out as a security feature. But that's going to be a separate kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Banks do that a lot, for sure, because they don't want you to just leave your bank login just open, sitting there for anybody to access.
Yeah, they're very savage about security.
They are, and for good reason, right?
To get in.
Okay, so what our situation here is that we can have our refresh token cookie and our JWT cookie have an expiration window of 7 days. The JWT internal expiration is 30 minutes. So that JWT is only valid for a 30-minute window. The refresh token internal expiration is also 7 days. So if you saw a little grid, JWT refresh token, you have external cookie is 7 days for both, and then for JWT is 30 minutes internal, and refresh token is 7 days. So what that means is that an expired JSON web token the cookie will still exist long after the web token itself has expired. Which is why you can have this particular state where you can get access to the token, but it can be in an expired state. Okay, I know that was a lot. You go back and watch it again later if you need to go through it again. Okay, so at this point, what we have is we have a JSON web token that is valid except for expiration. Perfect. All right, is the JSON web token expired? If it is any other issue besides that, go back to login. If it is valid and expired, then we move forward. So we need to get the user data from the JSON web token. That's this chunk here. So basically, we pull apart, we extract the information from the JSON Web Token. We get the user data that's inside of there, primarily the user name. We got to make sure that that user data was there, that it was the token we expected it to be. So does it have a user? Nope, kick it out. If it has one, okay, now we get to go retrieve the refresh token cookie. So this is us getting the cookie from getting the refresh token cookie itself. And if they don't have a refresh token cookie, then kick them out. And if they have one, then move forward. Don't worry about the switch statement. We're just worrying about this because, again, the teacher-student thing. Okay, so at this point, we've got the username from the JSON Web Token. We have the cookie from the refresh token. Now we got to go get the user. So we're going to go to the user database, make sure that we have that user. We get their ID. Great. That's all valid. So we check, does the user exist? No, kick him back out. Otherwise, get the user data, move forward. Then we got to get the refresh token from the database. So remember, our cookie is just the token string itself. It doesn't have anything else in it. So we got to use the token string to get access to the refresh token in the database. So we're going to do here. Here it is. We are going to pass into it the user's ID, the cookie token string, and don't worry about that because that's the student-teacher thing. And then what that validation looks like is it's going to get all of the refresh token entries in the database for that user, get them back, and then for each one, it's going to loop through and do a bcrypt verification on each one. And so it's going to take that string and then hash verify it against the hash stored in the database. So what we're looking for is there an entry in the database that matches that hashed refresh token? If we find one, awesome. That gives us back that refresh token, the token stored in the database. Now that token, if we look, contains an expiration date. This is what we're trying to get to. We now have that token stored in the database. And next is, does it exist? If we don't get a refresh token that matches back, kick them out, go back to login. If we find one that matches, yes, move forward. Is the refresh token valid? Here meaning expired. So is it, we check the expiration date. Is it still a valid token in terms of expiration date? If it's not valid, kick them back out. If it is valid, now we get to actually say at this point, if we have a valid refresh token, yes, the user is the user that should be authenticated in the system. We're going to go ahead and delete the refresh token. Or no, sorry, that's the case if it's expired. If it's expired, we delete it and then throw an exception and kick it back out. If it's not expired, we also delete the refresh token because basically the refresh token is a one-time use token to get us a new JSON Web Token. So we have our JSON Web Token. It's valid for 30 minutes. Every single access attempt that they make with the JSON Web Token, valid, 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 valid. After 30 minutes, invalid. Do they have a refresh token? They do. Okay. Issue. Here, they turn in the refresh token and they issue a new JSON Web Token and a new refresh token. You get both of them back out of the system. And so basically, in our analogy from the hotel scenario, you have your card. You use your card for 30 minutes, and then it's invalid. So you got to go and you have a second card they gave you, the gold card. You stick the gold card in. You stick both cards in. It eats both cards and gives you two more. And now you can go back use your white card again.
Yeah,
there we go.
I was gonna say it all sounds like a playing cards game or something.
I know, right? Yeah,
back and forth.
So what we do is we eat the two cards. We delete the you don't have to delete the JWT because we're just going to replace that one. You delete the one that's in the database. You make a new one. You store that one in the database. That's all of this, and then you set the refresh token on the request. So if we look at our thing, we have created a new refresh token cookie. That's done. And now once that refresh token cookie is done, now we're going to generate a new JSON Web Token, and we're going to replace that and put that on the request. So now you've got your two cards back, and you're authenticated, and it sends you forward. This is a whole lot of stuff going on here. Let me tell you what this experience is like for a user, though. User goes and logs in. For 30 minutes, They have a JWT that's valid, so they can access data, just fine. They plop over that expiration limit into no longer valid. So the user tries to access data. What happens? JWT is invalid. Let's try to get the refresh token. Okay, refresh token is valid. Let's generate a new refresh token, a new JWT, create both of those, send those back to the user. The user is authenticated. Boom, they get to go into the system. Which means that for the user, they experience nothing. No relogin, nothing that they have to do. It just works. This whole thing happens as a part of the normal authentication pipeline. They don't have to do anything. They don't even realize it happened. Maybe it takes a half a second longer for the request to go through to get the data from the website. Fantastic. Wonderful user experience. They don't have to worry about it. But if you are logging in and you log out for a day and you come back, well, your JSON Web Token's expired, but you have a refresh token back in the system. If you log out, or you don't log out, but you go away and you come back 8 days later, your refresh token is invalid, kick you back to the login screen, you got to log in again. Now, what this is really great is that because that JWT window is only 30 minutes long, anybody who got access to that cookie, they've only got 30 minutes and then it's not working anymore. And they're going to have both of those two cookies in order to be able to move forward into the system anyway. And that's only a 7-day window. So, you can adjust those. You could make the JWT shorter or longer. You could make the refresh token shorter or longer. It's just kind of like, how do you want your user's experience? What do you want security to be like? You could make it where you've got 1 hour and we're going to make you log in every single hour. You could go crazy, but this is the overall flow of this authentication system. I'm really proud of it. It works. It's exactly the flow that I was hoping for. Obviously there's OAuth can be a whole thing in here, and multi-factor authentication can be a whole thing in here. There's tons more to talk about and tons more to investigate, but this is your basic bread and butter password and username, internal authentication with your own database. And yeah, there we are.
Yeah.
I've talked way too long.
No, it's really neat. I mean, you're trying to parse down, and I'll, put my video back on. But yeah, you're trying to parse down an operation that we're all too familiar with and is, a slightly different experience from, your banking authentication versus your Bing News authentication, right? I'm sure are very different.
Right.
For different reasons, right?
Absolutely.
You're gonna be in the news probably every day, but maybe your banking is hopefully maybe just a couple times a week or something. So those are requirements that users have requirements, but so do protecting that particular type of data, right? So,
Absolutely.
but they all streamline in a similar process, but then can be tweaked, it sounds like, to your favorable, operations. So, but that's really cool. Yeah, and we haven't even talked about two authentication, which I'm also very interested in because I'm learning about that as a user, all the different opportunities. I now have one of those, what is it, the key fob things that just plug into your USB, and using that from a day-to-day basis, just because it's changing. Even getting information on your phone isn't as it's still really secure, but it's not the end-all be-all as it used to be, and things are always changing. But it sounds like there's thankfully a lot going under the hood that helps to kind of keep that secure, which is great because I have no idea how that stuff works.
And it's really worth saying, this is a drop in the bucket, and it's only one approach. And I'm sure there are problems with this and things that it could be made better. But there's a lot of different approaches to how to do authentication, and I'm so glad to have gotten to this point where I at least understand this flow.
Yeah.
But anyway, you should move on to one of our other presentations.
Cool.
Thank you all for bearing with. I hope it was interesting, and if not interesting, at least somewhat educational. It was fun. Thanks for having me.
And the cool thing is we've got this recorded, so if you guys are going back through this again and you want to, take a breakdown of a certain section, Like I said, I think we're gonna move on to our next one just for sake of time. But Caleb's around. Like you can talk to him. I'm sure he'd
Absolutely. You
be
please reach
happy.
out to me on Discord. I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah. So and we're gonna be in the Discord afterwards, but definitely later, then or whenever. Just ping him. I'm sure you guys can have a cool authentication talk. But yeah, thanks Caleb for coming out. I appreciate
Yeah.
your help. And I
And
think what we're
who
gonna
can I
go,
bring in next?
we're gonna bring in Mayo. So
All right. I'll
he's gonna
pop over to
give
the
his
green room. Bye,
update.
everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Let me see if I can. Let me do this. I'm trying to get better at like having a seamless transition. So let me do that.
Hello?
Hello. I can
How's
hear
it
you.
going?
Yeah, it's good to see you. So, for those of you who may know Mayo, he's been on our stream before. He's working on a game. He's actually working on a couple games, right? So, but one he's presenting today is Insect Adventure. So, he's definitely in our channels and talking and kind of sharing news on different things. So, kind of working with him, he's kind of wanted to do a little bit of talk of that. So. Without further ado, I'll let you take the show, introduce yourself, talk about what you do, and a little bit about your game.
Awesome. Alright, first things first. This is going to be a little less technical than the last two guys who presented. Am I able to stream?
Yep, you should be able to. If not, let me know. I can.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the window up, but it's not letting me.
Oh, is it not giving you the option to? Oh wait, hold on. Give me a sec. Sorry about that. Does it work now?
Alright, let's see.
There you go.
Yep.
That was my bad.
Alright, you see it on the screen in YouTube right now? I'm not able to myself.
Yep.
Awesome.
Just make it.
Alright, yeah, so this game came out a couple years ago. And yeah, it came out a couple years ago. And after doing a few updates, I decided to work on my second game. But recently, I've decided to work on this really big update. It's going to be a 1.5 update, kind of. I'm just testing out a whole bunch of new mechanics and stuff. So in this game, you play as Bugsy. He's the screen guy here. And he will pick up a hammer and he uses it to destroy other bugs. He is looking for his friend, whose name is Mayo, who got kidnapped by a lizard man. And if anybody has seen this game before, you might notice that the combo attacks can leave you stationary. Not this time. This time you get a lunge attack. And when you get the lunge attack,
Oh, cool.
you go into enemies and you can mash the attack button to beat the crap out of them and send them far away.
Yeah, that's really neat.
I've been working on this for most of this month, and hopefully I'll get this update going, or I'll get this update out by the end of May. That's what I'm hoping for. There's still a lot of stuff that's beta. I just got a striker shell, and right now he just does a little flip, but it's going to be an curling into a shell. That's going to be his parry option, which allows him to deflect them into a stun state. I go over to a couple of rooms to demonstrate that.
And I figure you are the only one on this project, right? Do you do all the animations as well and illustrations?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
I did everything in this game except for the music.
Yeah. And your engine that you use is Click Fusion, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I always like to kind of call that out because people sometimes have questions when they're trying a new engine, either for a game jam or something like that. I'm always like, I might know someone. So,
Yeah, I've been using it for over 10 years now. There's still stuff I've been learning.
yeah,
One of the things I wanted to do was like go over all the old code of this game and fix up a whole bunch of stuff. Almost everything that is in this game is probably going to be rewritten by the time this update comes out.
and then the versions of Click Fusion can have different platforms it exports to, right? Is this a particular one, or are you exporting it for PC or
I'm
mobile?
exporting it to PC.
Okay.
This is likely going to stay on PC forever
Okay.
because ClickTeam Fusion runs on uh, they're called extensions that allow you to make objects of different properties. And one of the extensions being used is called tile map, which is how the game draws the rooms.
Okay.
Basically, this is like all the game is technically loaded into one room, but every time I go through a transition point, it fades to black. It draws all the tiles around here and everything, just like what a older game would do.
Yeah.
All the rooms in this game are stored on separate files as well, so it's extremely modular and easy to mod. Unfortunately, because of that tile map option, I haven't been able to find the author and like be able to talk to him about getting the source so I could export it to other platforms.
I mean, I could definitely see this. Like, one of the things I've been telling folks is some games I could definitely see like on a Steam Deck or something like that. This is definitely one of those kind of games, I think.
Yeah, actually, I had a friend bought a Steam Deck, and he ran the game, and everything seemed to work just fine for him.
Yeah.
So fortunately, you will be able to play this on the go. I don't really have much else to say. You got the wall running ability was something you didn't get until like over halfway through the game, but now you start out with it.
Oh, cool.
A lot of the changes I made were to make it a lot faster and more free flowing.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Sometimes I'll play, obviously Castlevania, but like, was it Hollow Knight? And they're not normally this fast, but I like that. I kind of miss, like, you know, obviously Sonic or whatever, being able to just kind of like,
Yeah.
for like a better term, trash through a level and just like really just do a bunch of attacks and kind of really get in there. This guy's really cool. Oh, do you have a, maybe it's not part of this build, do you have a demonstration of your UI system? Or is that a different game, or is that a different build? The circular one? Was that the one? Were you the one that did an update for that, or was I thinking of someone else?
That was me. You're talking about like the inventory system.
Yeah, that. Yep.
Yeah, I've been slaving like the last couple of days trying to get this to work. The biggest problem was that for some reason, when I had it loaded in, the frame rate dipped from 60 to 40, and I didn't want that to happen.
Oh, wow.
And I just spent a lot of time beating my head over it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lines in there that was like, the computer should be reading this, but it's not.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But thankfully I got everything to run smoothly.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's really neat.
The circle menu, yeah. This actually came to me from a tester. He said the old UI looked kind of boring, so I decided to just spruce it up with this.
It's surprising how often I've seen a lot of the feedback in games with COGG members is like, hey, is there anything you can do with the UI just because it looks and feels kind of clunky or like it's maybe dated? And how, you know, it's like you don't think about it. That's kind of why I posted it today as a question is it can really improve the game. Like you don't think it is at first, but then you're like, man, it does kind of give people details about a lot of different things, whether you do decide to use a lot more UI or less, like kind of keeping it simple and useful is always something like players are trying to figure out. Like you gotta have something, right?
Yeah.
Um, and adding some new features in there can kind of really help streamline the process. Like right now,
Right.
I'm playing uh, like the new Deadline Island came out a couple days ago, maybe a week ago. So I've been playing the first one, and assigning weapons to the inventory list is like so archaic and just takes so long to do. I'm like, this is really frustrating. Like, can't I just like select it and then move it? It just feels like it takes forever to switch weapons.
Yeah.
So that stuff's really important.
One of the hardest lessons I had to learn with this game is realizing that there's a reason why games aren't still designed like they were on Nintendo. You just have so there's some trends you just can't ignore, and you have to implement in your game in order for them to be like. I guess the best way to put it is like successfully competitive.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, as much as we try to be different, unique, and stand out, there's other ways to do that. And I think what happens is, if you want something like in this, where you want them to kind of go through the levels and really just kind of chunk through stuff, a player that has some identification of like certain mechanics that they carry over from other games is going to have to be at some kind of foundation. Because
Yeah,
otherwise, like, they're trying to guess what's going on. I think slower games can probably do better with that if it's like very artsy or something. Like you think about Flow or something like that from that game company. They could probably get away with like doing some very unique things, but also people who want that kind of game are probably going to be okay with like learning how to play the game a bit because it's at a slower pace.
yeah. Actually, you know what? Since we were talking about UI and stuff, I was on Twitter and I was seeing like a lot of arguments about the Street Fighter game because you can go into a rematch like within a second of having ended the last match. Or a lot of people arguing that like people should or that they should like keep the long outros and stuff
Yeah.
because to give people time to reflect. But I think the conclusion I came up with is that the player can like let go of the controller and walk away at any time. The other thing they don't have control of was when they're allowed to go and do whatever they want.
Yeah, it's definitely some of those use cases where you're just like, what do you mean you went, got up and used the bathroom? Of course that's okay to do. Like, and you try to do a balance between um, finding fixes for things that are rare occasions and things that like do tend to happen quite frequently. And I think sometimes people get stuck in the weeds of like trying to fix every single scenario when you kind of really need to see the middle ground and just make sure that you're not missing anything as a developer that is pretty commonplace. I think that's kind of the key balance is like, there are going to be things that you're going to find through testing, getting feedback, and I'm not saying ignore every single bit of feedback, but like just take things with like a level grain of salt and try to make sure that you're taking into consideration of all the different feedback, but like identifying the ones that are definitely like things that need to be addressed and then kind of like
I would,
go down
I
from
think,
there.
I think you should really approach it the same way you would a presentation. You're like presenting a kind of specific experience to your audience.
Hmm.
And the most important thing you should apply to that would be like, does this adhere to like how the players feel? Like if the complaint is making it so the player can't like get that intended experience, then maybe that should be examined. Like what I found with Insect Adventure is that people really enjoy that Bugsy is really fast. The game's really fast paced, but the combat was like the weakest aspect of it. There's a lot of start and stop to it. Hitboxes weren't quite working that well. It wasn't really that deep. You just kind of like flailed your hitbox into the guy and hope you didn't get hit.
Yeah.
So I sought to remedy this, but in a way that also improved his speed. That's why Bugsy has this long attack now, because you're able to like chain it into all kinds of different stuff. You're able to like continue moving. There's still a better start and stop with the enemies, but I'm hoping to make it soon, so that when you knock an enemy off the edge of the screen, any other enemy they hit will also get hit, so you can just take out rows of enemies that way.
So we've also been getting a couple questions. I think I found a Steam demo. Where can people find a version of this that they can play, or if you had players test this out? Like, it sounds like you did, and I know you have a Discord, but are there ways for people to help test this game with you, or what makes sense?
Is it okay if I post links onto the YouTube chat?
Yep.
I'll do it right now.
Cool. So, sweet. Thanks, Tony, for that question. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because I know we're doing an update of this, but like
Oh,
some of our members haven't had a chance to uh, play this game. But if you haven't, it's a lot of fun. Definitely check it out. Uh,
I get
I've
this more organized.
Yes, and I've been on Mayo's Discord. He's got a couple games that he's been playing, so definitely if you want to check it out, they're like ours. If you want to get up to date on the progress, their Discord channel is going to be one of the better ways to talk in real time about updates and things and play demos, and maybe do some testing with them. Um,
So I gotta see another question.
uh,
I t- if I had the hindsight, this
if
is
you're
like my first game.
Are you
If I
looking
had
to
the
put it on
hindsight, I would
early
put it in
access?
early access.
Yeah.
Right now, this is like a full playable game, but right now the engine is different, so the experience isn't going to be quite the same. If you go on the Steam page, you'll be able to take a look at it. I highly suggest you wishlist it and to keep up with updates. And when I get out that 1.5 version, you'll be able to play like what you've seen. I'm really glad that you're really excited just by looking at this.
Yeah.
This is I don't know, man. I learned so much through making this game. I learned how to do art. I learned a lot about programming. I'm still learning stuff. And I don't know. Feel like you could just never stop learning.
Well, you can never stop developing too. I think it's the hard part
Yeah,
is like picking a
actually,
date.
funny story. The thing that got me to start working on this again is I was watching this video on the Sonic series, and one of the parts of that video, the guy was talking about a patch one of the developers for Sonic 3D Blast made that was like released 18 years after the game was made, and the guy was like, when is the game truly finished? And then when I went outside to exercise, I was thinking, I don't, I don't have to leave Insected if I'm not happy with it. I could come back to it and do
Yeah.
it, work on it every now and then. That's what led me down this path.
Well, and depending on when you release it, you could also, make another version of it, like a new 2.0 or new story or whatever. With all the things you've learned, it would be a even newer, much more robust experience too, right? I mean, I think that's the cool thing is these versions too. Like they're coming out with Hades 2, right? Which I was very surprised about, but
Yeah.
I'm sure they've learned a lot since then, which is really cool. Is this demo wishlistable? I think it is because I've got it on my wish list, but that was like a while ago. It sounds like it may not be on Tony's end. If there's anything else that people can keep a tab on, let me know. We can share it. Um, I'd be happy to uh, post it anywhere.
Yeah, I should make this into a demo. I'll have to go. I have to go talk about it to Steam help guys because the demo is like on a different account than the one I released the game on, so I'm unable to update it directly. But if I do, when I do get that, I'll make that a big announcement as well.
Okay.
Yeah, this is pretty much all I've developed up to. I
Okay.
could show the next boss, but it's a bit of a broken mess right now.
Yes.
Pretty much have to like go reprogram all the enemies and all that stuff in order to make the updates to the combat work. But I'm really glad for all you guys who wanted to check out the game, or who are watching the presentation and all that. I hope you wishlist the game. Like I said, I'll make a big announcement when I get this thing finished.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then if you ever wanted to share your Discord channel or any other press or media things, feel free to post it in our general or anything else in our Discord.
oh
And
yeah, uh, there's that one section you guys got. They are indie games. I
yep.
did just make an Insect Adventure page. I
Oh, right.
posted all the same links: the Steam page, my Discord, my Twitter. I showed a few videos of the gameplay as well.
Cool.
And if you got any questions, cons, or concerns, I highly recommend you reply to that group or go on my Discord and talk about it there.
Yeah. And if you're ever familiar or interested in that, I'll just kind of do a little bit behind the scenes. Um, we have a new thing in our Discord channel called our indie games. So if you go there, you'll see kind of like these little card sections. Um, and you'll see Insect Adventure there. So if you ever want to learn more, you can click on that. It has all the social handles, all the information about their webpage, their Steam page. So definitely check that out. And then if you guys have a game, feel free to post this up there. This is somewhat reciprocal to what we do with our COG games, and it's a great way for you all to kind of post things because we had our prototype and play channels, which is great, but those were meant to be just temporary for that event. This is now more of a home that, which is great that you guys are using it because now it becomes more viable. A way for you to have your game here and do constant updates, and then our channel gets pinged and lets people know. You can, obviously like it or you can follow it. You can add your own notes. And it's a great way to keep up with some of our games being in development. So definitely check that out. Thanks for Tony to help setting up this forum section for us. And then if you have any questions, Mayo's got a post in ours as well, and you can check all our information, all their information right in here. So, but cool. Let me see if I can get back. But yeah, let me make sure. Are there any other questions that we have? Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, cool. Sounds like your team's good to be able to update the Steam page. But yeah, thanks for coming out. I think if you guys have any other questions, you can talk to Mayo in Discord. Um, and then, yeah, I would be excited to see when we get the final release. We'll definitely help you promote that any way we can. So, I guess best wishes on, completing that boss and kind of tinkering around with other different mechanics that I know kind of come with the territory of finishing up a game. But yeah, thanks for coming out today, and we'll definitely be in touch and keep things moving in the information of your game's progress. So
You're welcome. Thanks
cool,
for having me up here.
awesome. Well, thanks so much. Let me do that. I will now invite our next guest for Godot and get them running. So let me go ahead. Let me do this.
I believe I am.
Click the wrong thing. All right, cool. All right, so our next guest is Brian, and you may have seen him both online and in person if you were actually at the prototype and play. I think it was last Friday at Game Arena. He was there showcasing his game. He is I'm almost gonna say a Godot expert, but you know he's definitely got a lot of knowledge in there. And I've actually asked him today to kind of talk a little bit about his experience because I know we've gotten a lot of questions about that engine. Brian's been a really great resource for a lot of things, both in the game design aspect of the projects he's been working on, and as well as like working in the engine Godot. But yeah, I'll leave it to that. Brian, if you want to kind of give a little bit introduction to your background, and then a little bit about your presenting today, and I'll let you take the show floor.
Okay. So first off, mic check. Can everybody hear me okay?
Might be a 30-second delay. Oop, boop. Might bump you up just a little bit.
Seems like I'm coming through on my end.
Okay, good. Yep, go ahead. Yep, I got yeps and yes
All right.
all around.
So, as I said, I've become kind of the de facto Godot expert here. Just a little clarification on that. I have not been using Godot all that long myself. I hope that I don't give everyone a wrong impression here. But we're going to start with the basics. First off, what is Godot? Godot is a free game development engine. It has been developed independently for many years. It has gone from a relatively amateurish engine to something that is fairly modern, fairly professional. There are a number of games that have been released on Steam using the Godot engine. There is actually a. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. Just a moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say Godot is actually gotten to a point where people are really starting to utilize its functionality or its game development use as a pretty powerful tool. Um, and it's moved from Godot 3 to Godot 4 recently, which I'll let you talk about that a little bit and your thoughts and experience of what you do know. But yeah, it's one of those. It's like for a long time it used to be mainly the Unreal Engine and Unity. Our community tends to be more Unity heavy, although recently I've seen a lot of folks utilizing Unreal. There's been a lot of updates there, but a lot of folks have also been asking about Godot because it's become just more robust. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm excited to
So,
hear about that.
so that ties in a little bit to my own background. So I have always had an interest in making games. My first games were actually made on QBasic. If anybody's ever had a chance to mess with that. I also accidentally made a broken save file system in QBasic that devoured any file system that you attached it to, but that's a different problem. So, so over the course of just my life, I work as a software developer professionally, but not in the game development industry. I am more of a web designer and database engineer. But I have tried uh, multiple game development engines. I started with Unity, made a few little tech demos with that. I briefly tried Unreal Engine, and at the time I found it to be very powerful, but also very focused on specific types of games.
Mm-hmm.
And in both cases, I found that there was just a tremendous amount of work in either engine to get a basic game out. And if which might not be as big of a deal if you've got a large multi-person team or if you're part of a professional game development studio. But if you're just a solo developer putting stuff together on the weekend, it wasn't. Neither of those engines seemed really practical to me to get something out in a reasonable time frame. And that's what attracted me to Godot, is that this was advertising kind of as a engine with enough performance and power to produce professional games, but also simple enough and with a streamlined pipeline that you could actually produce a game reasonably quickly as a hobbyist and have that game still reach a reasonable professional level of quality. And again,
Yeah.
as you see on the screen, there are a number of games. These are games that are all out on Steam, Dome
Ah,
Keeper.
are you sharing
And,
your screen? I think it may have gotten disconnected.
oh, I thought I was. Let's try that again.
Yeah, I had it for a second, then it went away. Let me see.
Okay, how about now?
Uh, it went away again.
Hang on. Oh, you know what? I think I know the problem. I think I minimized Discord, and I think minimizing Discord actually killed it.
Oh, hopefully not. It said the stream has
Oh,
ended.
nope. Hang on. It says you have been disconnected. Sit tight. We're patching you back in.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yep. Every time I try to share screen, it is giving me a
Oh, hold on, hold on.
disconnected.
You had the same issue as... That was my bad. Alright, try it again. Rolls, rolls, rolls. Discord is too cool. Alright, now
All
we're
right.
good. That was my bad.
Okay. So, like I said, this is just a list of games that are. These are all games that are like available on Steam. A couple in particular that I'm familiar with: Dome Keeper, Lumencraft, and Endoparasitic.
Mm.
Just as a quick, brief tangent, Mrs. I think I pronounced that right. This guy has his own YouTube channel. He talks a lot about game development and Godot development in particular. He's got a very good style. If any of you have tried finding tutorials on YouTube, I'm sure you are familiar with the tutorial where the developer spends the first 15 minutes giving you his life story and showing off his family pets before actually getting into any useful information, and then proceeds at the slowest pace known to man. He is the exact opposite of that. Everything he does is fast, to the point, highly recommended. Also, another brief tangent, if you are interested in learning Godot, I would recommend there is a group called GD Quest. They do have paid tutorials and such, but they also have a YouTube channel. That YouTube channel goes through all kinds of stuff. Everything
Oh,
from
cool.
like code patterns, common problems, basic stuff like just what they've made somewhat recently, how to make attack animations, if you're doing things in 3D, how to do shadows and lighting, that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is really interesting because usually the way I describe Unity and Unreal to people is Unreal has all the bells and whistles that you need right out of the box, right? Like, but you have to understand how to learn and use those systems. There's usually that can kind of tend to be a little bit overwhelming, and sometimes catering it to the type of game you want to make can take a little bit of tinkering, but you can get
Yeah,
there. And then
yeah.
Unity is almost like there is a box, but there's not much in it, and there's a lot of like plugs and stuff that you can put stuff into. You can import in a lot of free assets, and then go through a lot of the tutorials. But sometimes like it can take a little bit to get the foundation there. So it sounds like you're saying that Godot is almost kind of in the middle, but not without
So,
the quality reduction that you might fear you would have.
so, honestly, I struggle a little bit to compare Godot to Unity and Unreal.
Hmm.
Um, Godot originally, like in the earlier versions, it was very much a dedicated 2D game engine. More recently, especially with the Godot 4 release, it has become very powerful and capable in the 3D space. But I would say that the architecture of Godot and the way it handles nodes and such If you are planning a quick 2D game, Godot is a much better starting place. Like I said, when I went through the tutorials, it took me literally one sit-down session of about 2 hours to go through a tutorial and have a game put together. Now, admittedly, this is a tutorial, so they had all the like art and sound assets already made for you.
Yeah.
But the comparable process when I was learning Unity and Unreal was significantly longer.
Yeah.
So that I would say is the main difference. Godot has a very streamlined process, and it is a process that I think caters to very small teams or to individuals. I have not messed around much with Godot 3D. I've read the feature list. I've looked at what other people are doing, and it appears that especially with Godot 4, you can absolutely make a professional grade 3D game with Godot, and it does share a lot of the terminology from 2D to 3D. So just to
Right.
give an example of that, like I said, in my game, I have uh, what's showing here on the screen. The character, this is a character body 2D object. So the player is a character body 2D. There is a character body 3D object if you are making a three-dimensional scene.
Yeah.
There's navigation. Godot implements nav meshes. There is a navigation region 2D. There's also navigation region 3D. So a lot of the same logic and architecture does work between 2D and 3D. As far as structure goes, everything in Godot is a node. There's the basic node 2D, which has like your position, your rotation, your scale, and so on, and everything inherits from that. Related note, if you are a programmer, Godot makes extensive use of inheritance. So, sake of example, what I have up here, this is the code for my player class. It extends off the character body 2D class, and you can give your class its own name and then extend that further. Say, for example, I have a state machine, which I am using for player and enemy logic. There's a base player state, and the individual states all extend off of that. So that gives me code that I do not have to redo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this
So
kind of reminds me because I've done some stuff in like Game Maker, but I always felt like, I mean, they're definitely more 2D, kind of like this. But I felt like I got, some limitations there as I started to kind of get some more complex things, whether it was because of the code
yeah,
block or the library. Not saying that there wasn't. Like you could definitely like anything, any tool. And this is not to like knock any kind of engine. There's always
yeah.
appropriate tools for different tasks. And then like once you get familiar with one, like yeah, just run with it if it works for you. But
So
yeah, I think Game Maker was something that I could see comparable for 2D things. Construct 3, I think, is the web browser version now. Kind of reminds me of this interface a little bit. But yeah, it also can have some challenges. I don't think either one of those two have a 3D element. So like, I almost think like making a quick game and or like a game that you can get up and running in a game jam or something like that looks like Godot would definitely be a contender for sure.
yeah, and so related to that, kind of going into what Godot, kind of who the ideal Godot user is. There are ways to make Godot do things without writing code, but it's clunky. You can use, that being said, the animation player class in particular is very powerful. I've only
Okay.
got a basic setup here, but this in particular has been expanded for Godot 4. But you can make make a scene, which in this case my base scene is that character, that player character 2D, body 2D. attach an animation player as a child node, and then you can animate literally any property you want. You can even call functions from the animation player.
Okay.
So if, like, let's say you have an enemy and you want that enemy to self-destruct, you want it to do this like do an animation and then self-destruct at the end of the animation. Well, you could literally, in the animation player, at a set point in the animation, call the self-destruct function.
Is that what all those key symbols on the far right under animation player are for? They're keys that can be animated?
Yes. Yeah, literally any property can be animated. I don't know why you would animate some of these properties,
Yes.
but if you've got a crazy idea in mind, you can do it.
Yeah, that's great. I know Blender's kind of like that, Maya's kind of like that for 3D programs, and
Yeah,
yeah, you don't know if you need it until you do, and then it's nice that you can
right.
utilize it.
Which, somewhat related note, like what I'm doing in here, just to give you an example, let's turn to a more interesting one. So my character's idle animation. He has a sprite sheet, which is made up of multiple frames. I am animating the frame property. So at set points, it's in the animation, it swaps from one frame to another using basic keyframes. And this is just a very, very basic animation. Technically, I don't even need an animation player for this. There is an animated sprite 2D class, but that class has limitations. The animation player is a lot more flexible. So yeah, going back to what I said earlier, you do need to have some programming knowledge to make use of Godot. It is aimed at programmers. It has its own programming language called GDScript. It's very similar to Python if you're familiar with that. Alternatively, it has an API for C#, and it will actually link in with Visual Studio. You can
Oh,
get
that's
the Visual
cool.
Studio IntelliSense working, and it'll give you hints and code completion for C#, which I have messed with that briefly. There were a few things that I was considering doing that GDScript didn't quite support. However, GDScript, again, they've made major improvements on this with Godot, the release of Godot 4. And it is now fairly powerful and so far fairly performant. I do believe that you do get a performance increase if you're willing to code and compile in C#.
Yeah.
So if you're doing something with that has a lot of heavy lifting, then might be wise. But for all the games that I've made, even though I actually know C#, I've made them all in GDScript so that I can do everything in the editor instead of having to switch between the editor and Visual Studio.
Yeah, that's a good thing to have though. People who are familiar with Unity and C Sharp, like that'll be a natural workflow. But it's also good to be able to kind of code inside of there. I remember way back when Unity used to have JavaScript and I think Mono developed. They used to have their own editor that was semi within um, the editor itself that you could script in, but like yeah, now it's just kind of considered that you just use Visual Studio, but it'd be nice to kind of stay in the editor so you don't have to like kind of open something up and hope that it saves and go back,
Yeah.
make sure that it updated.
Yeah, and also, again, just for the purpose of like rapid prototyping, GDScript is very handy. So
Yeah, it looks pretty easy for the most part. I mean, that's saying that from a designer and artist. Like
again,
it's very readable.
yeah, there are caveats. The one thing I would recommend paying attention to, even if you don't feel like it, Godot has a recommended code style, like the naming conventions for variables and whatnot.
Mhm.
And I find that if you follow that, it does significantly help your code's readability. A few things that are a few things to watch out for. because Godot has had a major update recently, most of the tutorials and such you find on YouTube are still valid, but not all of them. So check the date, and if it's something from before 2023, do a sanity check before you follow what they say. Most things still work. They worked very hard to ensure a degree of backwards compatibility, but there's a few gotchas in there.
That's a good question because you are actually jumping from 3 to 4, I think, right?
Yes.
What was your
Yes.
experience in that? How challenging was it? And what are things that someone doing the same might need to keep in mind?
Okay. First thing, they did include an import process. You can take a Godot 3 project and import it directly into Godot 4, and it will make the necessary changes. I tried that, and it seems to work as advertised. However, that is a one-way change. Once you've done that, you're stuck with the Godot 4.
Yep.
There's a couple weird, like I said, weird little gotchas. Like just on my screen right now, get global mouse position. That is called differently. You have to call it from an object. It's not actually a global function anymore. It used to be, now it's not. Lots of little stuff like that. Probably the biggest change from my perspective, and the one that I have actually not fully figured out yet, is the changes to tile maps. So you can see this scene is all done on a big 2D tile map. It used to be that tile maps in Godot 3 didn't really allow any kind of layering. Like one of the more common techniques you might have seen is to add ground clutter. So you might have like a basic grass tile, and then you would have rocks and flowers and such that you would put on top of the grass. In order to do that in Godot 3, you would create multiple tile maps and then layer those using the Z-index.
So kind of like a corner of a building with and without flowers in it or something, or dirt.
Yeah, or like what you have here. If you look at the tile map I've got, actually, let me think here. Let me actually bring up my Godot 3. So this is actually an old project I have in Godot 3, and these torches, I had to actually create them as separate objects. I wasn't able to layer them. I wasn't on top of the existing wall tile. If I tried that, there would be a black square here. There'd be a hole in the bricks, essentially.
Oh, okay.
So the torches had to be separate objects. The new tile map system lets you create tile map layers so that you can add that stuff in directly. I'm not sure if I'm showing it very well at the moment, but these pits, for example, I put down all the bricks and such normally, and then put the pits and the grading down, the pits, the grading, and the walls down on top of the base brick texture.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, not having that is always a challenge. I know in Unity it was always like you had Z depth priorities for different rendering options.
Yeah, and you can make different, well, they call it terrains. It's very powerful. However, it has completely invalidated something like 95% of the tutorials out there on how to do tile maps in Godot.
Yeah.
So
for good or for bad, do you think?
So ultimately, I think it's for good. The system is much more powerful. Okay. It lets you do lots of crazy things, like you can copy and paste whole sections of tiles down. So the old system, you really only had the option of placing one tile at a time, and believe me, that could get real tedious real quick.
I bet.
It allows for the possibility of moving tiles. Like if, let's say, you have a platformer game with moving platforms.
Yeah.
you can create those moving platforms in the tile map itself and place them as part of your normal placement process instead of having those platforms be completely separate objects, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
I cannot give a full overview of it here because we'll be here until like 6 o'clock. And also, as I mentioned before, I'm still figuring out some of the features myself.
Sure.
But yeah, that's just a word of warning to anyone out there. If you're making a program in Godot, and you're using tile maps, be careful because unfortunately, at this point, there is a lot of obsolete information out there.
Yeah.
I
wonder, do they have, they definitely have a learn section, which has a lot of documentation.
They do. Related note, the Godot documentation is actually quite excellent. And one of the things that I really like, you can control click on anything. So right now I'm holding control and I'm hovering over the timer. And if I click on that, it takes me straight to the documentation for the timer class. And I can immediately see all the description of it, all of the available properties, all of the available methods,
wow.
what parameters they expect, and that same information is available on the Godot site. So
yeah, I just posted it in the chat.
so
Yeah,
the
that's really
Godot,
cool because I mean,
like
it's not a big deal if I have to go to a web browser or whatever, but like to have
yeah,
that directly in there. Again, same thing with the programming. Like it's just a nice to have, but it does make a better user experience, I feel.
yeah, and it's nice because it is very immediate. I use it mostly when I forget what methods a particular class has available. You can also do this with your own player-defined things and variables. Like, sake of example here, the creature variable, if I forget where I defined that, I just right-click on it. There it is. Speaking of creatures, my cat is attempting to lay on the keyboard, and she is very angry that I will not permit this.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, if you guys can see my user icon, the man being mauled by 3 black cats, that is my daily life.
Say I have 3 cats, and I'm interested that they haven't come up yet. There was one time during one of the events or one of the talks we were doing.
Yeah.
I was looking.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I've got a good headset, so even if they're screaming at me from off camera, it doesn't pick them up. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So, oh, what else?
So
Like I
in
said,
terms of your game, because you, if I remember right, the game you're working on now has evolved a little bit. You were
yeah,
working in Godot 3, and I think you
working.
said you were working in Unity for a hot sec, and then you went to 4 because that came
No,
out.
no, I have never worked on this game in Unity.
Oh,
So
okay.
I started way back when, before Godot even existed. I think I started in Unity
Yeah.
on a completely different project. So my original game project, I started in college. It was going to be a fully 3D, massively multiplayer experience. Yeah, don't do that.
No.
Make your first game simple. Make your first game like box a circle chasing the square or something.
Right,
Just
exactly.
uh, but moved tried Unity, uh, tried Unreal Engine, was looking for alternatives. Stumbled across Godot, tried Godot, loved it, and I've stuck with it.
Yeah.
So my original project, I'll just go ahead and show it off. This is as far as that project got. I was going to make some kind of, hey, I'm on the wrong window, and I don't have any way to get it on the right window. So one moment, let me do a thing here. I'm going to switch which screen I'm
It's
sharing.
not the right window, is it the left one?
Yep.
Wah.
All right.
It was a joke, but I think it actually wasn't a joke.
All right. So this is
Perfect.
my original game, twin stick shooter kind of thing. Was vaguely going for a science versus magic kind of vibe. So you'd have the standard fantasy monsters versus a big old stompy mech. Got very far with it, but ultimately discarded it. I just didn't like the feel of it, didn't like the way it played. But this is the project in Godot 3. I've mentioned this before. Some of you might be familiar with. I'm very proud of it. I call it the infinite bones system. When enemies die, they leave behind gibs. When those gibs stop moving, they are rendered to a static texture. So that way I can have thousands of bones on the screen without having thousands of objects on the screen and taking that performance penalty.
I know we talked about this, but like, I really think this game looks really cool. So why'd you stop?
Yeah.
Like, it looks fun.
Honestly, a lot of this stuff is going to get recycled into the new concept.
Oh, gotcha. Like, you liked the mechanics of it, but you weren't really sure about maybe the direction of where the game was going in this one.
The biggest thing that's going to change is the twin stick shooter element. I don't know. I tried various things and I just couldn't find something that I was particularly excited about. But
yeah, I mean, it looks cool. I like the only seeing so much in a range of movement. I mean, I don't know if I'd want that the whole time, but definitely in certain parts of the dungeon, I think it would be fun.
Yeah, and this is a test scene. This was literally me throwing together every individual concept I had into one scene to see what worked and what made sense.
Yeah.
But anyways, kill that for a moment. This is
the one you brought up prototype and play. Yeah.
Yes. So, which, by the way, I fixed the melee so you can actually hit the enemies now.
Oh yeah, cool. You got that dash attack. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah, and this game demo really, I created this specifically to teach myself Godot 4, to learn its little tricks and quirks. All right, we finished knocking these guys around enough.
Yeah, that's
major. I've already gone over the first major difference, which is things like the tile maps. Mm-hmm. Most of the changes from Godot 3 to Godot 4 are things around performance. Okay. Godot 4 is much more performant than Godot 3. A lot of the improvements have been in 3D. Okay. So if you were thinking of creating a 3D game in an earlier version of Godot, I would maybe warn you away from that because I don't think it was quite ready yet. Now, having looked at this, I think that Godot is fully 3D ready and can compete with Unity and Unreal on that.
Yeah, it looks like it follows the Disney PBR models of physically based rendering, real-time lighting, shadow mapping, global illumination. Yeah, I mean, those are not nothings. Those are pretty volumetric fogs. Yeah, post-processing. Yeah, they definitely sounds like they have some tools people can use. So that's cool.
Yeah, and Godot internally uses what's called the Vulkan renderer, which previously, again, Godot 3, it wasn't bad, but it had some noticeable flaws that you had to either just live with or make complicated workarounds for. Now the rendering is just very much better, very much on a professional grade. Other major change I have found, support for hard typing. So GDScript by default is an untyped language. You do not have to type your variables. It will figure it out as you go.
That's cool.
Which, as someone who came from Java and .NET and other hard typed languages, I found this very jarring. And if you're more familiar with like Python or such, then it might not bother you. But one of the major things that Godot has done recently is support for hard typing. So you'll see that when I declared my variables, there's this : variable type after each of them. And that turns this variable from a soft typed variable into a hard typed variable. So if you try to do something that this variable type doesn't support, it will throw an error.
Yeah.
Which that's one of the things that you learn the hard way as a programmer. You want errors to be thrown because because when something inevitably goes wrong, that tells you where it has gone
I was
wrong.
just gonna say syntax is the devil in the details all the time. Yeah.
It also enables, that's another big fix that they've made, is it enables auto completion. So if I type animation player dot, it will offer me the list of functions that, hang on. There you go. So it offers me all the valid functions.
Parameters of that, and yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
So
Caleb
it
was
makes,
joking around. He's like, there's always also ChatGPT. Well, if it had data more recent than 2021, anyways.
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah. So as a side note, this is very off topic, but one things that I was considering is just as a joke or maybe a game jam idea, doing an RPG like a standard Dragon Quest style RPG, except all NPC dialogue is Chat GPT,
Yes.
and just see what happens.
That'd be funny.
Yeah.
Also looking at the documents, so you talked about how there's GScript, there's C#, but there's
Yes.
also GD extension, which apparently supports C, C++, Rust, and D.
Yeah,
So I
I
don't know how
can't
that's
comment on
provided.
that. So
Yeah.
I don't either. I have not messed with that. One final note: this is something that I have been in the process of setting up. Godot does support version control. It does not support it straight out of the box. However, you have to get Git installed. You have to set up your own Git repository, and such. But this is another thing that I learned the hard way. If you're doing a big project, get version control, get some kind of backup system going. I guarantee you that after you put in 80, 60, 1,000 hours or whatever, something will go wrong.
Yeah.
Computer.
Version of control, especially for games, is pretty important. I mean, it's not gonna make or break you being able to build something, but like we've had.
Yeah, if you're just slapping together a weekend project, whatever.
Yeah.
But if especially also the ability to roll back is critically important, because again, I guarantee you will have an idea, you will spend a few days implementing that idea, and it won't work.
Yeah.
And if you have to manually remove everything to get back to where you were, it's a problem. Or you make a mistake. You did things were working 30 minutes ago, and now everything's broken, and you don't know what you did to break it. Sometimes it's easier to just revert back rather than play detective for an afternoon. So, highly recommend it. Very glad that they've added version control integration. There's other things that I could go on with, like there are debug options where you can have the editor open in one window while the game is open in another window, and you can actually see the changes being made to the node values.
Okay.
In real time.
Yeah, Unity does that. That's really helpful.
Yeah. There's other options. For example, you can turn on visual collision shapes. This is a good one. So fire it in, and now we can see.
Oh, cool.
Like sake of example, there's the hurt box for the enemy attacks. The enemies have two sets of collision boxes around them. You'll notice that they're moving towards the player, but they're also maintaining separation away from each other. Those collision boxes are how they see the world and how they are doing that.
Okay. Yeah, this is really helpful. I mean, it's not like another engine couldn't do this, but for this to be a feature outside of the box, or right with the box that you get, that is Godot, like that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Let's see. And another one, again, visible navigation. Another side note, one of the other major changes in Godot 4, navigation meshes. Godot 3 really struggled with any kind of procedural navigation, if you're trying to navigate from one nav mesh to another, it was very, very tricky
Okay.
and prone to breaking. The new nav meshes, they actually allow for slight gaps. There's a configurable setting that lets a navigation agent skip from one nav mesh to another. So let's imagine for a moment that this was a procedurally generated scene and this here was a separate room.
Yeah.
Even if the room nav mesh is a pixel off or something, it will still work.
That's
And
good.
as far as I can tell, no performance penalty.
Yeah, it's like that interpolation process between the two data structures of the nav mesh can be correctly connected. Yeah, that's a big one because like at one point like you hope that you can be just doing one collision or path or something like that for your nav mesh, but sometimes you need to like your particular like example of having a procedurally generated world, but then you have a very specific room. Those might have two different nav meshes, obviously, because you can't predict what the um,
Yep.
Dynamically generated dungeon would be.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
just
cool.
fine. So yeah, um, I'm going to stop sharing for a bit.
Okay.
Open up the chat. So as long as we're we're here. So first off, does anyone have any questions about Godot? I know this was not a very prepared
No, this is
presentation.
great. This is great. I mean, I
This
think
is
it's.
I've been kind of rambling here.
I kind of wanted to give somewhat of a face to our community so like people can kind of like know who to go to. Eventually, I think one of the things I want to do, and there's a lot of different improvements on the Discord channel I know I've been promising and haven't been keeping up with, but is creating new roles for people with different backgrounds. Like right now we have anybody can go into the assign role channel and assign as a creative, a technical, or kind of like a designer, right? And those are very broad, which is great when I just need to like ping a group of people, but I think what I want to do is get ones more specific, right? What engine do you use, like Godot, Unity, Unreal, or whatever? And then what platforms have you built on or interested in building on? What kind of games do you play? Giving people more options. But like definitely you coming today is, I think, a great way for people to kind of start thinking about like where does Godot fit in all these things? Because like
Mm-hmm.
I don't even really know. I've never used it. I've wanted to, and I think a lot of folks in COG and even anybody coming into our ecosystem are kind of in the same boat. So I appreciate you taking the time to kind of just even doing some
Yeah.
highlights because then it gets us thinking. Because yeah, like I said, like this might be a really good tool, and I've seen some people use it as a really good tool for game jams or just starting up a prototype or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
I highly recommend it. It is, like I said, of the engines I have tried, it is the one that I feel is best suited for individuals or small teams, which I think describes most of us here.
yeah, usually.
In particular, if you are putting together a 2D game using, like, say, sprites or hand drawings, uh, I think that it is much more straightforward than something like Unity or Unreal. I know that you can make 2D games in Unity, and I think Unity has actually been trying very hard to improve their support on that. But
Do
Godot is designed for that from the ground up, and it shows.
Do you know if they have any licensing requirements? Like I know Unity has like I think it's still the same, but $100,000 licensing that if you're selling more than $100,000 worth of your game, then you need to get a professional version or whatever. Um,
Godot has no license requirements. You are free to use the Godot engine for any purpose. You can use it commercially. You are not required to uh, pay them anything. It is 100% free and open source. The only requirement is that if you are distributing a modified version of the Godot engine itself, then you have to do there have to do some proper attribution, copyright notices, and so on.
Probably
But anything
because,
you create,
yeah, it's released
anything
under
you
the
create with
MIT license, so that makes sense
yeah,
that they would
anything you
require
create
that.
with Godot though is 100% yours. Uh, if you put something out on Steam, you don't need to worry about passing certain revenue thresholds or anything. Which again, that is for especially for like an individual developer or a very small team, that's a really big plus.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say that is really huge. I didn't know that. That because like I mean, you get your smaller indie game companies and studios come up and they're like, look, not that, if I made $100,000, on an indie game I worked on, like, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be too butthurt about, buying a license for Unity or whatever. But when you get to that point, you do start to realize, like, maybe to get to that point, you really do need to hire on like I know Mayo was saying, he's pretty much done everything except for music or audio. You need to pay someone to do that, or at least give them some sort of incentive. And then, maybe you're bringing on, an artist, or you're bringing on another programmer, another, maybe a lead designer or something like that. And all those things start to add up, and that $100,000 starts to become smaller. And then if you need to license it and market it, like maybe you need to hire on a lawyer, like all those things that we kind of don't think about, that if we're like, yeah, we really want to get this to be as big as possible, that starts to become like, man, like, it'd be nice if I didn't have to pay for this engine. Now, granted, all these engines are kind of really cool to have, at our fingertips. When I was in college, like I didn't have any of this, and when I had Unreal, it was like you had to pay, a license right up front. So but that this is an open source engine and it's gone so far, it kind of reminds me of like where Blender, for example, is today because it's open source. So it's really cool to see how far it's gone along. And just saying that alone has like gotten me really excited to try this out because maybe I do make the next whatever you know game or whatever, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of money. Like I don't have any worries about having to spend X amount for whatever. But yeah, it sounds cool. Really excited for that. Um, yeah. So
Yep.
cool. Let me see if there's any questions. No, I think we're good. I think we just had some side comments. Um, but yeah, what I would say is, if you do have any questions, like we started some conversations in the Discord chat. I think you have like, do you have your game up in the showcase section of the Discord?
I do
Or
not.
okay.
This is like the third time you've mentioned it to me, and each time I say, "Oh yeah, I'll get right on it,"
Oh,
and
I
then I
forget.
forget because I'm kind of crap. But
Well, do it. Well, I think there's also a because we have another forum channel for like dev help, and I think I've seen some conversations there. I've tried to ping you there just because I know you're working on it. Also, if you do work in Godot, let us know. Like we try to get people together to kind of help sift through information. But yeah, definitely we can get some conversations going on Discord. I'd love to see more Godot games and see what you guys think. And if you are doing the Ludum Dare game jam this weekend, again, it started last night at
oh,
9 through
I
Monday at 9 p.m. Uh,
I saw that and I wanted to, but I had already made prior agreements with people to do a bunch of gardening. So
that's
I
all
am
good.
being forcibly exposed to the light of the day star
Yep.
and actual plants and insects and whatnot, and I don't like it. But
Yep. Yep.
we make
I and
sacrifices.
I would say like we're trying to do more. Definitely at least giving exposure to ones that are coming out there. We have a game jam channel that I'm trying to post more. I think Tony posted one. I posted the Ludum Dare. We got the GDEX game jam coming up, so there will be more opportunities. And then obviously if you have one that you know of, let us know. And again, one of the biggest things that you can do to help us is just make games. That's really I mean, outside of like helping each other, if people have questions or whatever, like what you're doing here, Brian, is amazing. What everybody else
Yeah,
has been doing on this call, make games because that's really what's going to put us on the map and get us more exposure, get us more feedback, and help you all in general, like know what it takes to make some like really cool stuff. But yeah, so outside of that,
yeah.
yeah, let's continue the conversation on Discord. Um, and then
Yep. Which on that note, I did see where you pinged me under the new dev stuff, so I have posted a response to that.
okay.
Just to kind of go over here, the question that was asked. I got started with Godot literally using the official Godot documentation. There is a getting started section in there
Okay.
that has your first 2D game, your first 3D game. It goes over all the key points. It has been updated for Godot 4, so if you're starting
good.
with Godot 4, the uh, related note, all the official documentation is up to date as far as I'm aware. They have kept the legacy documentation, so just be careful when you are searching on Google, because occasionally you will get a Godot 3 result. But I think they actually put a big warning at the top of those pages saying, hey, this is not the latest version, FYI. The official documentation is excellent. It is where I would recommend that you start. Supplemental resources, GD Quest has been very helpful. There's a few others out there. Other than that, yeah, just making games really is the best way. You will run into a lot of cases like, hold on, how do I pathfind? It was one of my first questions, and that's what led me to learning about the Godot's implementation of nav meshes and the navigation agent.
Yeah, and like I always mention this, but like we're here to help too, best we can. We can't maybe answer every question, but I think I've been surprised more even so than myself, like how like dead on everybody is when they're like, "Hey, I have a question about this," and someone says, "Have you tried this?" And like I love seeing the conversations you guys have in Discord and sometimes on Facebook.
Yep.
So continue that conversation because that helps everybody.
Yep.
But yeah, this is great. Thanks for helping out. I think we're gonna move on to our next presentation. But if you guys have any other questions for Brian, I think he'd be a great asset to kind of ask a couple questions here and there, and then obviously anybody else that knows about Godot, let us know what your thoughts are. Um, but yeah, thanks for coming out. Thanks for showing your game, and keep us posted on its progress. And then if there's anything we can do to help, if we can play test it, if you have demos of it, if you have anything you want to share, let us know. We'll be sure to help promote that as well. So, um, but cool. Thanks for coming in. And then I think what we'll do is I'll bring in our last presenter, if I can get my cursor back, and we'll bring in Tony. Let me bring that in. Maybe my computer will respond. There we go. Cool.
There you go. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. How you
Sweet.
doing, Tony?
Let me
So,
make sure I turn this thing off. Or the audio for the stream. All right.
gotcha.
Bear with me one moment. I
Well,
need to make sure I
while
get.
he's moving around, Tony is one of our amazing COGG admins that's been joining us for the last couple of years. He has a lot of experience in building up communities in the game development scene, whether it's for different universities or with COGG, obviously. And he's done a couple of talks with us. But he's going to do a little bit of shout out of community he's been a part of, and kind of take it from there. So if you want to introduce yourself, talk about what you're doing, and then we'll talk about what you've been working on the last couple of
Oh
weeks.
man, working on us. Everything. Well, hello everybody. So most likely, or hopefully, as I had we spoke in other locations. Nevertheless, at this moment, I just wanted to kind of go over my experience at ECGC, which was fantastic to say the least. And I think it will be something where many of you will benefit from learning about and just getting perhaps a different perspective whenever you think about going to any of these conventions, right? And I don't know. start about me. I always have a challenge trying to talk about myself, but nevertheless, I'm a game enthusiast. I do like making games as well. I love helping with the community as well. I used to run one in Charlotte, North Carolina. And whenever I moved to Ohio, it just was like the best fit whenever I met Wes. So figured, continue uh, that concept there. So
I was gonna say
that
that
will actually bring
you
some
were
interesting things
you were a speaker
whenever.
at Shawnee State, and you're gonna be a speaker
Mm,
at GDC or GDEX as well. Excuse me.
that is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Look at that, man. Again, I don't boast about myself. I just like talking to people and learning about them. But yes, I will be. I spoke previously at Shawnee State, which was actually a very nice experience. Get to meet a lot of wonderful people as well. That's one of the biggest things I enjoy of any conference or any of these meetups, right? The people that you get to meet. So yeah, and then I'll be also speaking at uh, GDEX.
Yep.
Jeez. All right. Uh, Bear with me 1 second. I think you sound a little low on my end.
Let me see. Good. Oh, okay. Can I
Uh,
bump it up?
okay. We'll manage with that. It's just unfortunately whenever um I'm talking, it's hard for me to hear you, but it's all good. I'll stop.
I might be able to. Sometime. I can probably get closer to the mic. It's strange how much that actually makes a difference.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, so anyway, so the idea at the moment is actually just again talking a bit about what happened, right? The experience there. So it's kind of like just talking shop and sharing some of the things that I got to learn, which was a fantastic experience and many fruitful things that I feel a lot of individuals that are indie developers or are trying to start to jump in this industry or get their feet wet will benefit from, right? And if it so to start, just FYI, what had happened in order for me to kind of give a bit there of why I traveled to ECGC was that I had applied to talk, and unfortunately, they ended up accepting everybody that they needed, right? So they kind of filled all that speakers. So then they were like, hey, since unfortunately we didn't get to have you talk, your talk is interesting. We would love that, but we got everybody. But how would you like a ticket so you could come over and, just spend time over here? And I was like, okay, heck yeah. It's a free ticket, they are pricey, so why the heck not? So from there, I took the opportunity to go to the East Coast Game Conference. And as many of you hopefully are aware, and if you're not, many of these conferences offer talks from individuals like myself or other professionals as well that dive into specific topics, right? Kind of like we just did here, right? A bit. And there's additional sections which are exhibit halls that individuals showcase their games, right? And have a booth or something set up for those who attend to go and enjoy and give some feedback or just to try and play things, and see what they like, get some food for thought, right? Which again, a wonderful experience. And many of these developers, many of these people are just phenomenal. So that's how I actually got to meet some individuals at the conference, which shout out actually to Michael, and I believe he was there or here in the chat earlier. Too much tomatoes, and he's
Yeah, I
from
saw
the
that.
Triangle Interactive Arts Collective group. Which again, shout out to them. I believe they're in Durham, North Carolina. So they are an additional game development group like us. and Michael is a fantastic individual. So when I got to meet him over there, I was able to kind of quickly connect with him and be like, hey, we're doing something similar over here. I would love to connect, and I would love to, cross reference and just grow everything, right? So I know we are a Columbus, Ohio game group, but hey, it is a beautiful thing when we can connect with other individuals from other locations as well. The more, the merrier, right? So again, got to talk with him a bit. He is working on a game as well, which I would love for him to showcase here at some point later. So if we can connect with him, and of course, any of their individuals as well, or members that would like to also share what they're working on, it will be a fantastic experience for all of us, right? To pick our brains and ask questions and all that good stuff. So yeah, so got to meet him there. I got to meet a good few folks actually from Upside Downberg. They're a game studio in Charlotte, North Carolina. They're working on this actually on a few awesome games. One of them, which or for my understanding, most of the games that they've created have been made because of game jams, and that is crazy. Like, I'm like, wow. One of them that they actually brought up for us to check out was created because of the Global Game Jam. And if you remember, the theme there, I believe, was roots, right? So they created this game which pretty much is like a competitive and co-op up to 8 players for like the Switch, and you fight and try to take over things for you to again compete against the other individuals or the CPU. But it's something that you have to check out. It's something that I'm hoping that if they get some time that they can showcase and come here as well, or present the game, and then people could play it like literally live. We can have individuals kind of jump in the game as well, because it's also multiplayer. So that's really neat. And then they, I believe, have, or they also have another game called Mariachi, if I'm correct, and it is beautiful looking game. The mechanics are very interesting on it, so it adds a good spin-off to your side scroller shooter with some cover mechanics, and I believe some what was it? Goodness, hopefully I don't botch that. Some syncing like rhythm approach into it. Again, check it out. They're Upside Down Bird is the studio name, and just amazing. Let's see. So interacted with them. Also, another individual. Again, most of the experience there was really interacting with people. I did get to go to a few talks, and I'll kind of talk about those a little bit as well. But again, interacting with the people just kind of also gave some juicy feedback, which I'll share here momentarily. But the other group, or the other, how you say, the person that was showcasing their game is called Unwound. And this this game, it is beautiful. It's crazy. It is made in Unity, and you're literally a yarn, and you just kind of roll through this world where you're trying to figure out why you became this yarn, right? Which just, to me, I was like, what? Like, that's crazy, and it just looks amazing. Let me see if I may see. Um, I got to find it here real
Oh, did you
quick.
find it already? Okay.
Oh, I'm trying to get here so I can find it so I can show it real quick. Hold up. Okay, here's that one. Um, and then let me look at. um, sorry, bear with me while I should have had these things down already, but you know what? It is so good. It's like whenever you demo something live, nothing works. But
Here we go. There's
uh,
Unwound. And what was the other one? Upside down? Upside.
upside down bird. So okay, so I got it here. Let's see. Hopefully you can
Let me switch.
let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So this one is unwound, right? So again, very interesting. So you are this, let's see if I can see it right here. So you're like this little yarn. Oh, there you go. Check it out.
Oh yeah, full.
That's
Yeah, I was
great.
gonna say full.
So and this was made in Unity. Like it's impressive. So the developer, she I believe has spent maybe a year or two or so on it. It would be something I would love to ask her again to hopefully have her present this as well. So it just looks great. It's funny. It's quirky. It's different. Look at all the limbs.
Mhm.
So yeah, this one unwound, and then the other one was upside down bird, and they're located in Charlotte, uh, North Carolina. And here's the game, the mariachi game, Undead, and yep, it's a hand-drawn rhythm cover based shooter up, which looks again phenomenal. Like this thing looks amazing. Look at that. Um. So very, very interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's cool.
So, and then the most recent one that they brought up to showcase, here's four. Let's see if they got it in here. Maybe they don't have it out here at the moment. But um, yeah, I will have to, I guess, ask them because I can't recall, unfortunately, which one it was, but or the name of it to be exact. But yeah, so definitely, if you get a moment, I think you can go in there and wish list those. And I'll talk about that concept here as well momentarily. Um, let's see if I can
I
just
think I think one of the big takeaways from this, because I remember when I went to PAX one year, um, which sometimes is hard to get into because the tickets sell out pretty quickly.
Yep.
Um, it's important that you go to those conventions because like they really get you head front, especially like these kind of smaller ones. We're not talking about, E3 is a different thing, but like, even GDC and PAX can kind of feel a little big for people. There's tons of these
Mm-hmm.
conventions out there. And even if you can get to some of these smaller ones, I mean, obviously there's GDEX and all those good ones too.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many out there that you should be going to because you can talk to developers and you'll start to connect and kind of feel and understand that what they're trying to do isn't so like as unattainable as you may think it might feel. They're all the same way. Like maybe they're working day jobs, maybe they're working
Mm-hmm.
in between things, maybe they're going to school, maybe they're a software developer at a bank or something like that, or an artist
Mm-hmm.
trying to do their best, and they kind of make this game. I think that you'd be surprised how uh, connected they are to what you're doing already, and how to kind of see that path a little bit better just by talking to folks.
Yep.
And this convention is like one I've never even heard of, but I can already tell would be an amazing convention I think anybody should go to. And I know it's a little bit further out west, but take that time, to take a break. Maybe see you can find a new place to go to, and just kind of meet new people. And every time I've done it, it's been like, wow, really cool to kind of, get to talk to developers, but also get to know the area and kind of take
Mm-hmm.
that back and see like what can we do to improve as a community or as a developer or working on a game. There's so many different things that we can get inspired from, And then you probably do see a lot of folks there. I mean, I think some of the what is it? Some of their sponsors were like pretty big. Like they had
Yep. So, um, Epic is usually one of their sponsors. This
right,
year they were not there, but you had Epic, Red Storm was there, and they were hiring. A lot of these bigger studios actually were there hiring.
right, yeah.
Um, let's see. Oh, I got let's see. Bear with me. And one of the nice things is you get swag. So I got the shirt
Oh, that's
from
cool.
the Conan Exiles.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So and Funcom, so they were there as well, actually. So they were showcasing some of the games and also hiring as well. You also had Insomniac. Insomniac was there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually a
Yeah.
good bigger studios for sure. And the great thing about it is just connecting, 100%, being able to interact and talk with people. So again, one of the things to me that I benefited from, other than being how you say involved in the exhibit of walking around and talking, was some of the panels, if you will, or the talks that they had, that I got to meet a good few other individuals that were fantastic on what they were presenting. And if I may, let me see here. Share my screen again. So I'm gonna share and touch base on a few things. Okay. Let me know if you could see that there.
Yeah,
All
let
right.
me switch. Yep.
So this is the ECGC on their site, and just kind of touching up on a few folks anyway, that I think will be, just food for thought, to put it better, or informative. So Jacob was actually the creator of Rain on Your Parade,
Oh, yeah.
and that's a fun game. It is so freaking funny. So you're like literally this little cloud that rains on on things and people and everything like that. But one talk that he had, which I thought was like impressive, was on prototype everything, right? So just to talk a bit about that concept, and hopefully this will give some thoughts to many of you that are trying to make things or trying to quote unquote test the waters, right? So his idea, and I'm kind of gonna shrink this concept up, right? So bear with me here. Uh, so his idea was that you should be prototyping everything, and not just games, everything. Marketing, your concept, your art, your audio, your talking with people, you name it, right? And the idea for him is like, if you're gonna do marketing, just get snippets of your game, right? Like an image of your character, right? And make it like into a meme, right? Like just put some tags on the bottom and the top, and then kind of like your logo of what the game is, and just spam it in social media and whatever, just to see what people respond to, right? And that's crucial, right? That's what you want to get. So you can try and figure out the idea of what, again, people connect with. And if in one of those things that you post, if you post 6 7 different ones, and you have one section that provides a lot more feedback or interest, then now that is something that you could use again to get more interest, right? So you could get more people to come and be like, oh man, I like this, that was funny, or that was interesting. And you do the same concept again throughout everything, right? Like if you want to make, let's say, in the game, you have a small snippet and it's a glitch. Take a short, make a GIF out of it, and post it, and be like, hey, check this out, and just see the feedback, right? Because every one of those things is a potential quote unquote marketing scheme that you could use to gain people's interest, and then you could learn from your audience, right, in order for you to try and make something functional for you, right? So again, very important, very interesting for you to know, I think, and if you just play around with it and use it certain ways, you can learn a lot from that, right? So Jacob was really good. Toya, she's a writer. She focuses on like narrative interactive games. Her talk was fantastic on tools and things you can consider for whenever you want to make like narrative games. Then let's see, who else talk I got here? Uh,
These speakers?
Huh?
Were these speakers on the speaker page?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
this is the speakers. Oh, Bonnie. Bonnie actually was having a talk about uh developing for mobile and marketing for mobile. And that was I thought it was hella informative. So the idea of like, hey, shoot for something. Like whenever you make anything for mobile, doesn't have to be obviously extravagant. But of course, as we hear many, many times, you want to get your target audience, right? So make sure you know who they are. Make sure you again prototype that. So if it's something that you're trying to shoot for, just figure out different things you could do to get those people's interest. And whenever you find out one thing, then hey, that might be what you need to pursue, right? If it's what you would like to do. And one of the nice things that I recall her mentioning, if I may, yeah, one of the nice things that I recall her mentioning is the idea that if you're going to be making a game that is learning, right, of something that potentially is for you to learn, or something that may help you with some sort of challenge, right? So let's say whether you want something, as an example for hers, was you want to make a game for kids for them to be able to remember things better, right? Help with memory. So one of the games that she made for mobile was like this color-coded balloon popping game, right? And one of the things that she did, which I thought was genius, was don't only think about, oh, it's just a simple game here, but who would be using or playing that game, right? Who can benefit from it? So let's say you make something in that case that is, let's say, math, right? So this is a simple math game for kids. Well, take that game, take that concept, and take it to teachers, like math teachers, right? And ask them, hey, what do you think about this, right? Give me your thought about it. And a few things will happen, right? One, you get some good feedback from it, and they'll be like, hey, maybe if you're reaching for kids, K to 12 or etc., you might need to use only single digit numbers, right? If you want to do beyond that, then you might like to start incorporating this or that. But the crucial thing there is then you could say, do you see this helpful for people? Is this actually something people can, or kids or adults can benefit from? And if they answer yes, right? And again, keep in mind, I'm just using math. This could be for any game that may be beneficial to people in some sort of way, or other. And the key is for you to get their feedback on them telling you, hey, yes, this is something that will help people. Now that concept you could use for marketing, right? You could say, hey, teachers and like professionals and whatever approve that this game or this thing that I made actually helps, actually helps kids or helps people learn or helps keep memory or, etc., etc. right? And that is a extremely crucial concept whenever you think about it, because it will allow you to use these professional individuals as marketing means to help you push your things out, right? So again, a fantastic talk on that she presented on. I thought was great. Then that's right. So then one talk in there was from a senior developer in Unity. And oh man, like I thought, like I personally thought he crushed it. Oh my god, it was technical as heck. But for those who love being technical, and I know most of our members here maybe, but even if you're not, it is good for you to know so you can teach or tell your other technical folks like, hey, have you seen this, right? And let me see if I can share that here. So hopefully you can see, but Sean Peoples. So one thing that he was talking about was how to get performance, right? Like, so the performance on your game, right? So there are many things in Unity that you can use, and I believe I kind of put those up here. So like for you to figure things out about your game that maybe you were not aware of, right? So one, Unity had created a memory profiler. This thing is on point. Like, it tells you how much memory certain assets are using, how heavy it is, how like much is taken for it to be processed, like your build and everything like that. And like you can go down to like, hey, this image is like a 4K image and I'm releasing it for like, mobile. It doesn't need to be a 4K image. You might be able to shrink that down and get some better performance of it, or get some memory back because you have this enormous image, right? And other ways that you can use a memory profiler in order for it to help you improve your game performance or improve your assets of what you may be using. So he touched base on that. He touched base on the standard profiler, which helps you figure out what scripts might be hanging or what might be doing too much calculations, right? So if somewhere in your game you have a loop and it's like whenever you're doing something, you pick up an item and it just lags for like, a few seconds, you're like, whoa, what was that? Well, it's something that you maybe want to look into that. And the profiler definitely helps you figure out, hey, at this point there was a peak, on performance. What was it? And then you can go down into it and figure out whether it was, a loop that you had going on that was crazy, and maybe you could improve that, or a call that is trying to do to another script, etc., in order for you to again improve and update that concept, right? So the idea is there too is that you could use the profiler to attach to other players. So if you have like a multiplayer and you have different devices that are running your game, you can attach to them to get information from them to kind of do like debugging and things like that as well. So again, his talk was phenomenal, I think, when it came down to the performance concept and things to consider. Also, Unity has, instead of just a memory profiler, an additional, I believe, is a scene profiler that breaks down everything in your scene: the lighting, the what is it? Lighting, async, your maps. You name it, like everything related to your scene, and then you could figure out what might be taking too much precedence, like if it's being rendered too much, or if it's far away and it has like a lot of geometry or a lot of something, you're like, whoa, that needs to be like lowered, and Unity provides these tools for you. They're just not kind of like upfront, for you to be like, oh, it's easy. But you just check out profilers in Unity, and it should hopefully give you a list of all the different ones available to you. And potentially this will help you out get improve on that concept there. So yeah, so that kind of get some good insight on that thought there. The other thing I feel was extremely beneficial, of course, to me, the biggest thing is interacting with people, like 100%. And some insight that I got is that for any convention that you may want to attend, right? If by any chance they offer different layers of tickets, right? I would take an example of GDC, right? GDC is huge, like big, and their tickets can be fairly pricey. So one thing to perhaps consider is that maybe you don't need to go to some of the talks. The talks may be good, but if you can do a lot more connection with people, then maybe you just need an exhibitor ticket, and then instead what you do is go around, talk to people, talk shop, see how they are, what they're doing, what they're working on, and figure out if there's any way that you can learn from them, or any insight or questions if you have, which again will help you, right, in the long run, because these things are just pieces that you could use to help you, one, build that network, and whenever you do need some food for that, for instance, you're like, this person did this, I may be able to reach out to them and get to learn more of how they overcame this challenge, right? Or other. So those are things to consider, is that for any conferences that may be big, or something that you will care to attend, but it may be a bit pricey for certain tickets, you maybe don't need that super expensive one. So
Yeah.
just food for thought there.
I mean, I think that's a good point, because I think a lot of times people who are in our community, especially folks who've been around for a while, they're like, oh man, to really make it worth my while, I should buy all the different exhibitors, or excuse me, the panel sessions, right? The speaking talks.
Mhm.
If you've been to a lot of those in the past, honestly, like, and you're just there to network and be like, let me get like real world experience, like talking to
Yeah.
people one on one can be just as
Yeah.
beneficial and not as much of a depth on your wallet, right? So yeah, take
Yeah.
in consideration, like I wouldn't take it lightly, that if you just have an exhibitor hall and you're talking to exhibitors, that could be great, and then you can also learn about the area too, right? Which is
Yeah.
also nearly just as important to kind of know where people are doing in different areas of the U.S. or
That's
whatnot.
right. That's right. So the thing is that the thing to or one thing to consider is that just because it's an exhibitor pass doesn't mean that you will only interact with those individuals, because sorry, my dog is over here, and we all with pets trying to take attention. Um so one interesting thing is that the speakers and the larger companies, or etc., will be in the floor. Trust me, they will go to the exhibitor floor. They will go and check out other things that people are doing. And many of these conventions, or conferences, if you will, they have a place where they get together as well, like afterwards, or during, or etc. And that is the place to be, right? Like, if you want to network, if you want uh to gain more insight on certain things, do that. Go join the group, go hang out with the folks, wherever it is. Doesn't mean that you need to partake on whatever drink, or food, or whatever, if you don't want to, but just the sole purpose of being with the other individuals that you can talk with, is very important, right? And yeah, so again, that's just the thought process that hopefully helps, any of you, most of you, etc., to be able to consider, right? And again, one thought, like I remember way back when for me, was like, well, why do I want to go like talk to people if if I can't get work, or if they're not gonna get my thing, or etc. I mean, that's the importance more so is building the connection for then and the future, right? For this opportunity that sure it may not be work right now, but perhaps down the line you never know, right? Down the line, if you chive with this individual, and it was a good experience, and you keep up with them, then if they're hiring, or their studio is hiring, or etc., that's your foot in the door, right? Like I love interacting with people through like LinkedIn or Discord or etc. I'm like, hey, how can I reach you? Like, what's the best way for me to talk with you? Because I would love to continue talking with you, and especially about what you love. I mean, which I love too, is games, right? So having that is definitely a very beneficial thing, right? So again, just a food for thought. So a few things uh, to touch on that I did get to learn that I thought was actually pretty cool. So one thing that many of us may experience down the line, or work with others that will need this as well. So, and we just currently actually talked about that a bit earlier, was the idea of putting your game on Steam and getting wishlist, right? So here, don't quote me on this, but I'm gonna tell you what I learned, and I'm gonna tell you a great thing that we as individuals and we as a community can do for each other, right? So the idea is that through wish listing, Steam, depending whenever you reach a certain amount of wish lists, will then start moving your game up in the list, right? Because then there's more interest in your game. So you have more people that are like, oh wow, So therefore, in order for you to, for them to kind of benefit from the concept too, they're like, hey, a lot of people want this, so let's kind of bump it up some, right? So then you start going up that chart. So one thing to consider is to, of course, go in there and tell everybody wishlist my game. But a community like ours can also help individuals, right? And I feel that that will be a great advantage to many of us, that wishlisting is only a click away. Literally, it's just a button, and I'll be like, I wishlist it, right? And on times, uh, you don't even have to. I mean, it's hopefully that the people will buy your game, but let's take a step back real quick. Just when people wishlist it, it is beneficial. All right. So even if they don't have the concept of purchasing the game, but the fact that they wishlist it, then you get credit, or quote unquote points, in order for Steam to potentially keep moving your game up some, in which will hopefully move you up the list by promoting you, in which then will make you more accessible, if you will, for those who would like to purchase, or those who will purchase your game, or for those eyes that haven't seen it yet. So please, 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 if you see anybody that tells you, hey, wishlist my stuff, and down the line, whenever we'll present it, or etc., we'll be like, wishlist it. Just do it. Just go in there, click a button, call it a day, help each other out. Because the moment that you do it as well, trust you me, I'll be the first person. I'll be like clicking on that as well, just to help you crank up there. Because whenever you look good, we all look good because it's a good feeling. It's like, hey, I know this person, they moved up and they got stuff sold and, they did a fantastic job. So, just consider that, right? So yeah, go to communities like ours or the other ones for like the Triangle Interactive and showcase your stuff and just a click away. Even and just be like, hey, even if you're not gonna buy it, it's okay. Just please wish list it, and it's a benefit, right? Um, so that's a good, I thought, juicy detail that I got. The numbers do vary. I think for things to start pushing up, I heard, and don't quote me on that. I'm sure you could find it online somewhere. Anything above 7,000 or so starts helping you move up that ladder. So we're a large community. Take advantage. Like benefit from it, right? Um, so yeah, so that was one very interesting thing, for sure on that sense. Then let's see, what else? Was there something else I wanted to touch on? So there was there's just there's the talks and oh, I mean you kind of touched base on that earlier, but I will be having that talk on GDEX.
Yep.
So please, again, think about it. Come by, network, talk to me, talk to others. Just go all over the place. Just get the thoughts out. Get what you like to learn and do, and so on and so forth. Oh, that's right. So here's one additional quote unquote. I'm gonna call it a juicy detail. Um, so for those who are in the exhibit, for those who are showcasing their game or presenting or etc., right? Uh, Two things. One, for those who are presenting or showing something off, and two, those who would like to network, right? So there is this beautiful thing, and I'm gonna look it up here real quick. Hold on. Let's see, and then.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I was looking on their website and they have a student and professional art gallery. Looked pretty cool.
Oh yeah, they're awesome.
Those are great
Like some of the
opportunities.
work there,
Yeah. Those are
some of
great
the work
opportunities
there's
to get yourself out there and maybe get
that's right.
tickets for next year. So,
Yeah, no, that is completely right actually. They have a small competition where you can submit either 2D art or 3D art and then the community will vote for you. So hey, if you network, but like, hey, can you vote for me? Hey, can you vote for me? But and a lot of fantastic work was shown actually at the exhibits. Some great schools as well, universities, which will be, I think, are great to interact with as well, to potentially have students and so forth collaborate or bring their skills over. For those who may be artists, for those who may be designers, you name it. A good experience for sure. Oh, so here you go. Found it. Okay. So there's this site, and I know it's something that you could create yourself, 100%, but or you could create for like your own site, but let's see if I can post that in the chat real quick. Yeah. Uh, cool. That one, and then this thing right here. Let me post this in there as well. Oh man, that link is ridiculously long. So I don't know if I can shrink that out some. Bear with me, bear with me. Let's see if I can. ah, Um, okay. right here. Perfect. There. All right. I'm gonna share my screen. So hopefully people can see. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
I got it.
Awesome. Okay. So here's another wonderful thing. Food for thought. I love things, ideas, and all that good stuff. So this is me, right? So there's this site called Linktree, right? And you could create an account for free. And basically what it lets you do, as you can see here, is provide your contact information all in one place. Very simple, very quick. So right here, like I have my Instagram, my Twitter, and then my LinkedIn. You could go in there, click on any one of those, and you'll find me. Another one is it'll take you to your website. So if you have a website, it'll take you to it, and then bam, easy. It'll find you, right? And then you could do a contact. So directly in this form, that people can actually send your email, which is awesome. And then of course I gotta do a shout out to COGG. So I have the COGG link in there as well, which I tell people, hey, join us, check us out, see what we got going on. And this here is a beautiful and quick way in order for you to showcase or present the best way for people to reach you in any one of those ways, right? Any one of those forms. The website, your social contact, and then I even put the tools that I did on the asset store for what I have that those who may want to see what I've done can go in here and be like, oh, hey, what Tony did, cool, this and that, etc. So they can literally have access to all that one place, right? The cool thing about this is the second piece that I'm about to tell you. You buy these things here. These things are RFID tags, right? So this RFID, you get 100 of them for $30. And I'm sure you could do like 10. You might not need 100. That's a lot. But the idea with these tags, right, is that you can program them to go directly to your site here as a contact. So instead of you carrying a business card or anything like that and then just giving it out and people lose it and potentially don't get a contact with or etc., you just say, hey, here's this card, and you just grab the people's phone. So if I'm in steps streaming, okay, I'm here. Okay. I don't know if the screen already shows it, both what I share and me, but anyway. So here's this card. It's literally blank. So this ones you can actually print on them, just FYI. So you can take it to a printer. If you have a printer, you can print, your business or whatever you want on it. So the idea with the card is that you will use it and you will just say, hey, I don't got a business card, I have my phone, and then you just tap it on their phone and it will open up a link for the site, and it'll literally take you directly. You may not be able to see it here, but it'll take you directly to that website I just showed you, right? One fell swoop for you to be able to be in touch with anybody, right? So, and you can already think of many things to do this, I'm sure. So a great way to do and for you to contact or get in touch with people ASAP is I use this. I say here, add me in LinkedIn like right now, or send me an email right now, or follow me, or etc. And bam, you got them ASAP. Easy contact, easy way for you to reach out to them quickly.
Yeah, I can reciprocate like getting an initial conversation going because I literally have boxes of business cards and I know
Right?
probably 80% of them I don't remember any of them. And they have all their details on it, but like I don't know where I got it from and all that stuff. But for me anyways, if I can get like and I get lots of emails
Yeah.
through COGG and through multivarious and all this other stuff. Like I don't remember anybody, but it always catches me I take that lightly. It's not that I don't know anybody, but like I'm very bad with names and remembering
Right.
things. But if I can search it in my Google Mail or whatever, my personal account, then I can find it. And it's funny because I've literally had people come to me and say, "Hey, we need to connect." I'm like, "Cool," and then I start typing their name, and I'm like, "Wait, we already connected." And I'm like, "Ah, shoot, I'm so sorry." Um, Yes, I know
Right.
exactly who you are. I remember exactly where we did that from because like then it starts to connect, right? It gives me
Yep.
a date, gives me a time, and I usually put information in there that says, "Hey, this is so and so from this," so it gives me a timestamp. So yeah, definitely getting an email out there or something like that is really important because like I think that is a great way to get people um, to remember you and be searchable
Yeah.
and kind of give
Yeah.
context to it. So
For sure. I mean, the nice thing about the most of the socials is that it will tell you whoever just followed you or just joined you or just whatever. So you will know the individuals that reached out, and then you can reach out to them, be like, "Oh, I remember. Let's continue the talk, right?" Uh, so FYI, this is the RFID uh card, right? And you could buy a stack of them online. The other thing that I would highly advise for any of you or anybody out there to do is, if you're going to be promoting your game, if you're going to be putting it out there and you want people to again wish list it or go to the app store and download it, put it there. Put the link in here directly to where they need to go. So again, instead of you being like, "Hey, go and search me on Steam and find this game, which one is it?" They may just forget or not do it. Really quick, be like, tap on that and then wish list it ASAP. It will take them directly to it. Or tap on that and it will take you straight to the App Store or Google Store, whichever one, and then they can download your game or your demo or whatever quickly. Think about it. Right. So those are pretty much the last things that I have, or the last thing that I have that I wanted to share with everyone, in hopes that it would, get some juices flowing, get some thoughts going, for them to consider and for them to be aware of. So that is that.
cool. Yeah, thanks so much. I think that got us a lot to chew on. I think one other thing about conferences is that, if you're worried about, I mean, hopefully you're lucky enough you can like send out a talk and, maybe it not get accepted or get accepted and you get to go out anyways, like
Yeah.
Tony. But if not, another way to do it is just volunteering. Like, I can't stress enough, like, as someone who's also working with GDEX and trying to find folks, like, we really need volunteers. So as much as it's like, hey, that's cool, it's like a free pass, like you work X amount of hours.
Mhm.
It's a great way to meet people, but also it helps the expo, which also helps the communities around it. So yeah, definitely check out volunteering too because it really is helpful. It's a very core structure of conferences and expos. So definitely check that out too as another option.
Mhm.
If you're wanting to go to a place and maybe it's out of your price range, try to see what that could entail. But yeah, I think this is great stuff. Thanks for talking to us, Tony. It's always a pleasure, and I appreciate you going out and kind of giving us some snapshots of like a convention kind of coming out on the east side. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, really cool stuff. Really good information. If you have more questions for Tony, he's very active in the Discord channel. He'd be happy to kind of give you more information. And yeah, I think that'll kind of wrap us up for today. I think with it kind of getting closer to dinner time, I'm probably gonna call it quits for today. But yeah, normally we'll
Mhm.
we'll get into the Discord, but I live there. Tony lives there. We all live there. So if you
Yeah,
have any
we're all in
questions,
there.
yeah, if you have any questions, let us know. We're happy to talk to you guys. But I think that'll kind of do it for today. Any last things that you want to note, Tony, before we sign off?
Uh, no, just please reach out to all those other communities that I believe with shared as well and are in our Discord as well. So you can talk shop and get your work out there, and hopefully we can get some of this companies in here to also showcase their good stuff.
Yeah.
So
And if you have any
yeah.
communities or game studios you want us to take a look at, let us know. We'll connect. and we'll be sure to kind of get him into our ecosystem. So cool. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody. You guys have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll catch you later.